Two, hello, check. Hello, folks. What's up? How's it going? It's me. Sorry I'm late, I was sleeping. That's alright. That's okay. You got here eventually. You got here eventually. We all got here. How are you all doing? How's it going? You know, I really did move away from the Rain total body fuel. For whatever, we've gone over the reasons. We don't need to relitigate. We don't need to relitigate the whole Rain energy total body fuel situation. I've moved away from it, but honestly, I got these cans at the grocery store, and it really is a tremendous product, It really is just a tremendous product. I've been enjoying those monsters lately, but man, the cherry limeade that I had yesterday, and yeah, this is the rainbow sherbet. The rainbow sherbet. It's good. It's just very good flavors. 0 sugar in those. Have I mentioned that? 0 sugar. What do we got? Like 5 calories? 10 measly calories. Unbelievable. What a feat of modern science and technology and engineering. Rain Orange Dreamsicle, still best flavor. I do really enjoy that flavor. Although, I think I have a little can graveyard forming here. This cherry limeade was really good. I think that gives the Orange Dreamsicle a run for its money. I have a rainbow one waiting for me at home. It's only 10 cal. Well, TwitchyBite, where are you? Like, what? Are you in America? It's possible because there's more caffeine in the ones in America that perhaps there's more calories. I can't speak to that. Those 10 calories from the vaccines they secretly put in there. Good. And I think that's good when they do that. Was the cherry limeade carbonated? Yeah, it was. It was fucking great, actually. The orange one is good. The gummy rain is good. I quite enjoy the flavors. Rain's still not for sale in my dismal country because of woke soy communism. No. All you can get is like fermented shark slurry. I'm sorry, Diego. I'm sure there's wonderful culinary traditions, and you have both a South American culinary tradition and a Scandinavian culinary tradition. I'm sure there's all kinds of fantastic things. I know it's all not fermented fish products and stuff like that. We're just having a good time. Rain finally introducing fermented shark slurry flavor. Yum. Yum. The 10 calories from the vaccines, and it's good. It's a lot. They're probably vaccinating us to stuff we can't even get sick of. It's why there's no downsides to drinking this product, this beverage. I did see, I don't know if I was hallucinating. I swear to God, I saw a monster orange dreamsicle at the store. Maybe maybe this is like a Mandela effect, or I have some kind of like dyslexia or something. I don't know. But I swear they tested that and then they moved that up into the main rotation. and it's a good flavor. I get it. I've been eating cream. I've been getting packages of creamsicles lately. Actually, it's a pretty underrated little dessert, little treat. A creamsicle. That's nice. You have your dinner and you follow it up with a little creamsicle at night. You could get a gig as a taste tester at Rain HQ. I would love that. I would be happy to do that. I would be good at that, actually. It would be good to do like a tasting, like you do like a wine tasting. Like you get your nose in there, like, It's detecting all the different chemicals, taste chemicals that they're throwing in. I would be happy to do that, thirsty housewife. You spit it after tasting. Not me. I'd be all juiced at the end of the day. You ever have a lime creamsicle? I don't think I have, GMO Radio. That sounds fucking great, honestly. That sounds really good. I think I've had, I don't know if this dessert is like common. In Montreal, you get these. It's usually called a Mont Blanc. It's usually called a Mont Blanc, which is like a slushy with soft serve ice cream in the top. So it's kind of the same. It's the same kind of like taste profile as a creamsicle. And I'm pretty sure I've had a green Mont Blanc before. Never a green creamsicle, though. That sounds very good. Mont Blanc. It's a very good dessert. Very nice little treat in the summer. Very tasty. They make them in all sorts of different flavors. Yeah, just the ones that I've been getting, it's like orange, cherry, and blueberry, actually. There's a blue one. If Rain could make a strawberry shortbread creamsicle. Wow, that sounds exciting. We're innovating here now. We're innovating now. So, excuse me. I didn't really advertise this. Jordan and I went to do a podcast interview this morning at 11 that the timing didn't end up working out. So we had to reschedule it for 2. So I wasn't planning on this, but we are going to do today a live Insurgents podcast recording with Jordan Peterson. That's right. Really looking forward to that one. At 2 p.m. At 2 p.m. we're doing a live Insurgents podcast recording, and we're talking to Dan Boguslaw, he's with The Intercept, and he was one of the co-authors of this like really explosive Intercept piece about the New York Times and this whole like Hamas rape gangs story, which has now just been has totally fallen apart. It's a massive scandal. This
is some guy, Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Marcus, hello. Marcus. Left Flank Vets, what's up? Thanks for the raid. I appreciate it. Bring it on in here. Bring it on in here. Please smash the follow button. Thank you to Left Flank Vets for the raid. I appreciate it. It's me, Rob. Hello, it's nice to see you. How's it going? I was just bring it in and take a knee. By the way, Marcus, I come all the way down to Virginia. I'm like, oh, I can come down. I can see some people in Virginia. I can even see my friend Marcus. And where was he? Where was he? I didn't see him. Very interesting.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through
Very
all this.
Interesting. But who cares? Who's even counting? Who's even paying attention to that? Not me. I don't care. I'm down in the United States in Virginia all the time. So You know, I'm sure, it's no big deal. I'm just joking, Marcus. I'm just giving you a hard time. You get a little rib. Anon, thank you for the gifted sub. Anyways, you rated just at a great time because as I just mentioned, in 1 hour's time, 1 hour and 5 minutes, Jordan Ewell and we co-host the Insurgents podcast, and we're going to talk to Dan Boguslaw of The Intercept about the piece that he co-authored on The Intercept, exposing this massive scandal at the New York Times, this whole New York Times Hamas rape gang story, which has completely fallen apart. It was just it was based on absolutely just a lie. Incredibly shoddy. It's a huge scandal. And we're going to talk to Dan Boguslaw about this piece in The Intercept and about the details of this particular case. Can they just stop lying for 5 seconds? Well, and first of all, no. Number one, no, they can't. And number two, this is part of a pattern, right? I think this specific story is important, but this is part of a pattern about Israel making claims, and then our political leaders and media leaders here in the West instantly just taking those claims at face value without any investigation needed, no further follow-up needed. It's just Israel says it, and the people that run our media establishment and our political establishment, the upper echelons, the elites, the ruling class of our countries, instantly just take it as the truth. And in the case of this New York Times piece, they make the claim, and then it seems we can look at the South Africa case and the ICJ is legit because every once in a while they actually do stop lying. Yeah. I mean, sometimes they are very honest about their intentions. But then when you hold up the things that they say when they're being honest, and you go to court and be like, look what they're saying. And then they're like, whoa, we didn't mean that though. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. All Israel knows is murder innocent people, eat hot chip, and lie. Exactly. Exactly, mistress of insanity. Except they eat food that they've appropriated from Arab cultures. They eat falafel, and then they claim that they invented it, which is not true. They never charge they phone. Well, they do, because then they go and commit war crimes on TikTok and document it for everyone. And then again, when you show those documents to people, the documented video war crimes, they're like, no, this also doesn't count for some reason. But the things I say in Hebrew to my genocidal friends are purely private and must never be acknowledged. That's right. It's Hamas when you acknowledge the things that I say and do. That sounds like something Hamas would do. No, it's a huge scandal. And like I said, it's part of a pattern of behavior of just all of these claims being taken just at face value immediately. There's been a number of examples of this over the last
you can count on
couple
me.
of months
Good
now,
old Rob
5 months or so. You've talked about the beheaded babies shit, the Hamas command center under the hospital, where the babies, pregnant women being fetus cut out of her womb and stuff like that. This is the most horrifying things you can imagine. And Israel just makes these claims. The Hamas command center. That's right. Israel just makes these claims, and people say okay, well, let's just assume that that's true and work backwards from there. And that's what this New York Times piece was. Yeah, it's depraved, Marcus. What? And we talked about it when we looked at that piece when it came out. First of all, we as we talked about yesterday, we knew that was a lie immediately, because that narrative came out immediately, the next day after the previous ceasefire ended, and the violence resumes and the killing starts again, the massacres start again, and they immediately just come out with this story about roving Arab rape gangs. It's actually not hard to determine whether these stories are true or not, but That's the thing about that story is it's just front loaded with like 4 paragraphs of just the most graphic, violent, grotesque descriptions of sexual assault and murder that you can possibly imagine. Those are the first like 4 paragraphs of this piece, which is not journalism. And then it spends the rest of the article or the rest of the piece kind of trying to provide some kind of evidence that any of this happened, which is incredibly flimsy. It relies on testimony from these discredited organizations. It's all secondhand, no physical evidence, absolutely nothing. A lot of these stories are coming from that like rescue group Zaka or whatever. And you know, one of the most fucked up things, I don't know if anyone saw this when this happened yesterday. So they're a source for a lot of these really outrageous claims, right? Zaka. I found this fucking mind blowing. So there's this like search and rescue Israeli group, right? And a lot of the most extreme claims about violence on October 7th and beyond have come from this group, which were printed in these articles. Yeah, and then it turns out one of the authors of the lie is liking tweets about turning Gaza into a slaughterhouse, who's not a journalist. Literally, it's her first cover story in the New York Times, not a journalist. Literally just an Israeli propagandist that they were like, please tell this story. Israel has made this claim. We assume that it's true. So please just come on and work with our team to like justify this story. Like find whatever you can do. Find evidence for this. And whatever it is, we're going to put it in our newspaper. I don't know if you saw this about this group Zaka, though. Check this shit out. This is crazy. Zaka establishes advisory board in New York. Zaka Search and Rescue. This is from 2018. Zaka Search and Rescue, an organization based in Israel that establishes, trains, and equips rescue units all around the world, has formed an advisory board in New York. And look who this is. Look who's on the advisory board. He's kind of hidden. Do you recognize this person, though? You see who that is? He's kind of standing behind someone. You might have last seen him the last time smiling insanely while harassing a halal cart vendor and saying like 5,000 Palestinian children is not enough. You might remember him from that incident from a few months ago, who was literally arrested for harassing this halal cart vendor. That's right. It's Stuart Seldowitz. On the board of Zaka. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These are the people that are entrusted with sharing this kind of information, which our Western media then just runs with as if it's infallible. It is too on the nose. I couldn't believe that when I saw that. Stuart Seldowitz. Yes. And this group, Zaka, was, like I was saying, deeply, deeply implicated in sharing horror stories about Hamas violence following October 7th. That's what I was saying yesterday. You know, it's not just this one guy. It's an entire nation of Stuart Seldowitzes.
You can count on me.
These are the people that work in
Rob
the upper echelons of power.
Half a year of indoctrination. I mean education, in this cult. I mean friendship triangle.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, for the 6 months tier 1. I appreciate it. Thank you for pointing out that it's not a cult. I appreciate that as well. Did you see the NYT interview with the Israeli settler who said, like, yeah, I'm fascist? Yeah, no, it's really something else, isn't it? It's really something else. Some of these folks. Like I was pointing out yesterday, there's people that are framing not even stuff about Israel, but the idea of like settler colonialism as being some kind of like fringe online leftist conspiracy theory. You know? Aaron Bushnell, in that video, he says, if compared to what Palestinians have been going through at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. And people have said, oh, he said colonizers. He's been radicalized by these like online wacky leftist conspiracy theories, talking about Israel as if they're colonizing it or they're a settler colony. They're literally framing it like it's this wacky online thing. And meanwhile, you look back to the foundation of Israel and the people that are like literally the original Zionists founding Israel. They're like, we're doing settler colonialism, and that's good, and it's good to us, and we're going to provide a barricade to like the swarthy Asiatic hordes. Like they're literally saying those words. But now, if you talk about settler colonialism within the concept of Israel, they're like, well, that's like racist. How dare you say that? That's a conspiracy. I was blown away by that Stuart Seldowitz thing, though. Yeah, like it was this tweet someone posted here. Israel advocates today. Describing Israel as a settler colonial is a slur. Early Zionists, our settler colony, which is a good thing, will provide a European buttress against the barbarous hordes of the Orient. Like, you know, it's really absurd. Anyway, we're going to get to this stuff. Like I was saying, I'm glad you all tuned in. It's going to be, I'm happy that The Intercept has been doing this work, debunking this narrative and a lot of other narratives that have been spread by Israel over the last couple of months. I should point out that, you know, I'm glad that The Intercept is doing it, but we saw outlets like Electronic Intifada was on this on day one, and I think they deserve credit for the work that they did in debunking this as well. Greasy Groob 69, thanks for 9 months of Prime. And that rhymed. Stream Baby. Hello, Fox on the Wall. What's up? Yeah, so I'm glad you all showed up. I'm happy. Okay, so then getting back to my train of thought there, but I do think Electronic Intifada in particular deserves a lot of credit for being on this immediately. Like I said, we don't have to wait for the investigations to take place. We knew that it was a lie right away because we're not stupid, and we have basic pattern recognition. So we have the ability to understand when we're being lied to repeatedly over and over and over and over again. The Gray Zone was also doing work on this, and like we've talked about every time this comes up, there's things you can criticize about some people with the Gray Zone, particularly Max Blumenthal. You know, but he's done good work on this. That's just the reality. He's spent a long time doing good work uncovering this, and they were on this story immediately right away. I'd rather wait decades later when this is partially declassified. That's only then can you admit that it was a lie. Only then. Frankly, and this is one thing that I've talked a lot about on here. I've been a lot more cagey about talking about this on Twitter or in other forums, but this should, to anyone, cast a lot of doubt or at least raise a lot of questions about October 7th and the narrative that came out about what happened on that day immediately afterwards. And I get it. It's a very, very difficult moment at that time to try and make this kind of a stand. I think, though, that we should all be like, look at all the numbers of stories that have just completely collapsed, just over the last couple of months. And that absolutely should, I think, cause us to all ask serious questions about this narrative. We think all these, the beheaded babies thing, the roving rape gangs, rape as a weapon of war, which of course like Hillary Clinton and all these people were jumping on as well. All these bullshit stories. But it's like, but the narrative of October 7th, that it was just purely this orgy of indiscriminate violence against civilians. And that's all that it was. I think like enough time has passed, we could admit that was never accurate. And I think we need to be even more radicalized in the future if similar events ever happen in the future, to know right away that it's a lie, or at least a huge obfuscation of the actual truth. And we can't ever let these lies move us from our position in terms of our support for Palestine and our criticism of Israel. I think I like to tell myself that I did a decent job staying in my spot and not being moved off of that. I will admit that there have been times that I have kind of self-censored, or I've tried to maybe tone down my language in certain forums, but I think all of this, that should be the experience that we all take away from this. The next time this like propaganda machine starts up and they start trying to pressure you into going along with whatever new horrors that they're trying to visit on people in Palestine, it's always a lie. I definitely think enough time has gone by also that we can admit that the Palestinian paraglider troops was one of the coolest thing that's ever happened. Like, let's be real here. Let's be real. That was insanely cool. I'm sorry. It became this like symbol. Oh no, you can't show images of these paragliders now. Oh no, it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. We don't know, but you saw what happened at this music festival. You saw the violence and that was unleashed. You can't go to a Palestine protest and celebrate that. You can't celebrate one of these paragliders. I'm going to say you can. I'm giving you full permission to indeed use images of these paragliders and to celebrate that. It was cool then. I thought it was cool then. I think it's cool now. And I think we should stop playing these games where we try to like make people comfortable. Oh no, you can't talk about that. Oh no. Of course you can support and there was a lot of hall monitors. There was a lot of hall monitors saying like, well, you can go to a Palestine protest, but you can't have an image of like a paraglider. That's like so upsetting. No, you can. You can. You absolutely can. Yeah, and the image of the bulldozer at the fence slapped then and it's slapped now. And Husker, like that's, as I've said many times, when I woke up on that day, on October 7th, that was the first thing I saw. And my reaction was, fuck yeah. It was a beautiful moment. And it remains so. And I've had a lot of people say a lot of things about me based on my things that I said on that day and immediately afterwards, and certain tweets that I liked as well. I've had a lot of people make all kinds of claims about me since that time, and I don't regret any of it, frankly. I felt I was right to celebrate it at that time, and I still feel like I am right. And I think we've all been proven right by the last 5 months in our support of people doing that, engaging in that kind of resistance. I stand by the Monda Weiss article, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood was an act of decolonization. Yeah, and again, there was people saying that. So let's go back and look at that narrative, remember? Because there was a lot of people on that day saying, yes, celebrating what was going on, including me, and I'll admit to that. I did. Yes, I'll celebrate. When I saw images of people fucking with these handmade paragliders escaping from the concentration camp that they've been trapped in for years and attacking IDF checkpoints, yeah, I've celebrated that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then let's remember what happened. Then that's when the narrative starts. That's when the narrative starts. And the images from this music festival start coming out, and all the narrative starts about the thousands of civilians, the thousands of innocent civilians that were targeted. And then if you're like me, especially if you have any kind of like a public platform, you start thinking like, should I be walking any of this back? Should I be self-censoring? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And it's really hard in those moments not to do that, I think, when that pressure starts getting put on you. You know? And as we can see, a large percentage of those narratives that were put in, that started to take effect in the hours and days afterwards, have proven to be lies. And like I said, I've said this before. I said it yesterday. I'll continue saying it. I think if people that are just like unarmed settlers are targeted for violence, I think that's really fucked up. I think that's horrible. And you know who I blame for causing those deaths is Israel. Israel put people in harm's way. Israel says it's the only safe space for Jews in the entire world, and Joe Biden agrees with them. And they build these McMansions directly outside of a concentration camp. And then you wonder what happens when people escape from the concentration camp, and lo and behold, they're not too happy. Like, I think that's really fucked up whenever unarmed people in any kind of conflict, in any kind of context, are targeted like that. But that is on them. That's on Israel. They created that situation. They're the apartheid government. They're the occupying power. They've kept Gaza they've turned Gaza into a prison camp for 20 years now, controlling everything that gets in and gets out, bombing people, killing people's families, taking hostages, sexually abusing people in these prisons where they're held without trial or without charges for years. The Great March of Return, murdering hundreds of innocent protesters, killing kids, deliberately maiming kids, humiliating people, dehumanizing people. And then when people are targeted by violence, they say, oh, these savages. It's so disgusting. We saw it yesterday as well, right? We saw it yesterday with the aid trucks. Oh, these savages. Look at them. Look at these savages swarming these trucks. Our IDF boys were just so scared. They had to open fire on these crowds. You deliberately cage people. You murdered people by the tens of thousands. You're starving people intentionally. A few aid trucks managed to get in, nowhere near enough. And lo and behold, the people that are in the concentration camp starving are rushing these trucks. And instead of being like, that's our responsibility, it's like, look at them. Look at these animals. Look at these animals. It's the same concept. The small bean IOF was hurt by the scary people starving. Exactly. Yeah. The narrative has to be that colonized people should never fight back. Now the Western world has colonized so many places. If Palestinians have the right to fight back, and so do every oppressed population, that would collapse the power they hold on the world. And not even around the world, but like black and brown and racialized people in North America and indigenous people in North America. This is why they can't tolerate colonized people fighting back and like engaging in armed struggle, because we are settler colonies as well. We are also genocidal settler colonies, as the report on missing and murdered indigenous women and girls showed, as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission showed in Canada. The genocide that Canada has committed against indigenous people is ongoing. It's still continuing. There was a video I saw this morning about most of the people that died, and that was from bullets, not like some stampede like they tried to frame it. Yeah, I mean, it's always the same thing, right? It's like the stories just constantly change. First, it's like a stampede because of these savage people that are just like killing each other to get flour or aid or whatever. And then it's like, oh yeah, but we did open fire as well because they were like rushing us and we were scared, you know? It's fucking horrifying. And that image of the person that was crushed by a bulldozer, I don't know if people saw that image. It's one of the worst things that I've ever seen. I mean, it's just every single day there's a new worst thing that I've ever seen. With a zip tie on their hands, crushing a unarmed person that has been zip tied, an unarmed prisoner, crushing them with a bulldozer. Every single day, it's just the worst things you can possibly imagine, the worst crimes you can possibly imagine. Yeah, but Hamas are the terrorists. That's right. And again, when Palestinians engage in armed struggle, as they did on October 7th, that gets demonized and gets used to justify even more violence. I thought they said it was a tank. Oh, I think you're right, Dakadoon. Sorry, I misspoke. Or, I don't know, armored bulldozers, whatever. Like, you know, just absolutely sick. Israel ran over an American teenager with a bulldozer in like 2003. That's right, Rachel Corrie, right? Who's a hero. An American hero. And there was no consequence for that. No consequence whatsoever. For murdering her. Who was trying to protect people from having their homes bulldozed. An American hero that Israel claimed was her fault. And they celebrate it. They have parties where they eat pancakes to mock the death of absolutely heroic person, Rachel Corrie, who sacrificed her life just like Aaron Bushnell did. And they celebrate it. And they have parties to celebrate it. Like, these people are sick. Yeah, that says it all right there. Western media goes crazy over a guy standing in front of a tank in China who was fine, who later just walked away totally unharmed, but doesn't bat an eye at someone actually being run over by one in Gaza. And not a someone that's standing up defiant, someone that's been tied up and has surrendered and is unarmed and is a prisoner. Like, this is every single day it's something that's the most depraved thing I can imagine. The bravest, most courageous people you know are being mocked by murderous cowards. And it's really amazing to see images of Aaron Bushnell in like Yemen now. Like, it's honestly pretty incredible the way that like that has reverberated around the world, what Aaron Bushnell did. And how people around the colonized world, that meant something. That meant something to them, that sacrifice. Hello, Old Dutch. What's up? Hello, Pelicans. How's it going? It means something to me as well. Like I said, I'm going to be thinking about Aaron Bushnell for a long time. Anyway, that's why I'm excited to have this conversation with Dan Boguslaw today, because we're going to talk about this piece in the New York Times, and we can talk about the ways that our media has been complicit in just acting as stenographers for the Israeli government, no matter what they do. Like, there's literally nothing that they can do that they won't bend over backwards to justify. Even the stuff we were talking about yesterday. When they're just murdering people in a bread line, basically. Murdering people who are desperate and starving. And what did CNN call it? A chaotic incident. It's a chaotic incident. And that's another thing too, is like when Israel makes a claim, it gets immediately accepted as face value by every single person in a position of power in our society. Whether they claim that like UNRWA people were part of October 7th, whether they claim that the shit about the beheaded babies or whatever, this like the roving rapist hordes, everything gets accepted at face value immediately. And in the case of like the New York Times, you then have the New York Times like working backwards to try and like drum up evidence for this claim that's being made. Versus when Palestinians say something, not even say it, but have visual evidence of it. You know, whether it's this bulldozer incident, whether it's what happened yesterday with the aid trucks, whether it's these hospital bombings. And then it's like, well, we can't just repeat this at face. We need to have an investigation. Oh, it's the Hamas run health ministry that's making these claims. We got to investigate. We got to look into this. One side is being treated as automatically always telling the truth, and one side is being treated as always automatically telling lies. And the ones that are being framed as constantly telling the truth are the murderous, genocidal fucking maniacs. And the people that are automatically framed as lying are the colonized, oppressed people with no army, none of the same resources. I wish someone would punch that Matt Miller White House guy in the mouth every time there's a source to support Israel. It's Israel that's the source, exactly. And I saw people yesterday, oh, yeah, I like for instance, like Jagmeet Singh was saying, like talking about this massacre that happened. And it's like, oh, this has already been debunked. This has already been debunked. There's like this, the information about this incident is already out there. Yeah, the information, which is just what the IDF said. And when the IDF says something, that just gets held up as being automatically the truth. No matter what. Even when we can see it with our own fucking eyes. PM Trio, I agree. I don't think I have a lot of criticism of Jagmeet, but this is one case where he was already like, he was doing the right thing in this situation. He was doing the right thing. He was condemning this like grotesque attack. And then you have like stenographers for Israel just being like, oh, this has already been debunked. And when we say debunked, it just means Israel said, no, we didn't do that. No, that's not what happened. I saw that Jagmeet condemned Spider-Man. Believe me, I remember. That's why I don't think it's useful or productive in any way to play this fucking respectability game and condemn these things. You know? It gains him nothing. It gains him no credibility. And then when he does do the right thing and tries to condemn actual things that are worth condemnation, it ends up having this like both sides false equivalence thing. I condemn everyone. I condemn Spider-Man and I condemn the Israeli occupation forces just shooting starving people. I condemn both of those things as if these two things are like equal in any way. No, I'm done as well. I get it, PM Trio, believe me. Did he praise Brian Mulroney? I believe so, yeah. There's like this fucking... I was talking about this in one of my DMs today. There's like this like sick obsession in Western liberal democracy political culture. It's part of the civility to like make sure you send your condolences. You know, regardless of who it is, whether it's Brian Mulroney or Thatcher or Reagan or fucking Henry Kissinger or whoever. The Brian Mulroney thing is particularly stupid as well. Yeah, too bad. That's it. I take my cues from her. I'm still with her. Olivia Chow praised Mulroney as well. And there's a couple things about that. Like, number one, Mulrooney was a big part of the kind of neoliberal process of deindustrialization, the same like Reaganism, Thatcherism that swept Western governments, that completely destroyed our societies, basically. That contributed to all of this, the economic crises that we're facing now. You know, and I think he's getting a lot of credit for apartheid stuff, because I guess Mulrooney was like one of the, Mulrooney was kind of, in a way, leading the charge for these Western countries to sanction the South African regime and to talk about like Mandela and all that stuff. But I don't believe Mulrooney should deserve credit for any of that. I'm sorry. Like, the ruling class in Canada, including conservatives like Mulrooney, supported apartheid right up into the bitter end, until it was clear that it was on its way into the dustbin of history, and then found themselves finally on the right side of history just at the very last moment, after years and years of like actual activism had been trying to agitate towards this and being referred to as terrorists, just as Palestinian activists are referred to as terrorists today. You know? And then at the very last minute, they said, okay, we are against apartheid now. You know, no, I don't think Mulrooney or anyone should get credit for that. Like, there was Marxists and socialists that were not only advocating against apartheid, but fighting apartheid decades prior to that. And they were referred to as radicals and terrorists and extremists. So no, I don't think Brian Mulrooney deserves credit for his eventually finding himself on the right side of history on the apartheid question. Yeah, the only reason he came around was because of pressure from polite society, and apartheid South Africa was doomed. Like, it was on its way out. It was a lost cause. So no, I don't think you need to praise Brian Mulrooney. And I get that we don't need our political figures sometimes that work within these systems aren't going to like piss on the grave of whoever, whether it's Mulrooney or Henry Kissinger or whoever, Gould, George H.W. Bush or whatever. But you can also just say nothing. You know, you can just say nothing. You can just say nothing at all. So I don't get why they don't do that more, you know? Just like these genociders will come around to ending Zionism later rather than sooner. For sure, old Dutch. If we do live to see the end of Israel in our lifetimes, and I believe that we will. I believe we will. And all these fucking people are going to try and tell us that they were always against it. What? This is horrible. We were always against this. And whatever dipshit is going to try and get credit for being on the right side in the exact same way. But we're not going to let them forget. Like I said, I hope everyone in our ruling class that's been supporting this gets protested every single day, every time they're in public for the rest of their lives. Like I said yesterday, I hope Biden's funeral is protested. When this decrepit old fuck is finally in the ground, I hope his funeral is protested because he's a genocidal monster. And that's all he will ever be. Whatever legacy he might have been able to rewrite, despite his long career of being like a racist, segregationist, reactionary, who also came around to the apartheid thing and was very adamant and forceful about apartheid when it was politically popular to become so. But he had an opportunity to rewrite his legacy, and guess what? This is how he's going to be known. He's going to be known as a genocidal monster, mass murderer of Palestinians. Like how Jeremy Corbyn barely said anything about the Queen dying. For sure. Absolutely. we should talk a little bit before this interview about George Galloway. So this is kind of an interesting situation. So George Galloway, who is like a former member of parliament, who in the UK, who is opposed to the Iraq War.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I'm interested to hear what chat says about this, actually. Ian, thank you for the 30 months tier 1. I appreciate it. Because Galloway, I think when it comes to certain foreign policy issues that we talk about often on this show, often has the right line, whether it's about Palestine, whether it's about Ukraine, whether it's about China, whatever. He advocates for positions which criticize empire, which criticize Western foreign policy, that I agree with. He's also, and I think regardless of what you might say about someone like him, and we can get to that, because he's like a social conservative, which I think is really shitty and advocates a lot of socially conservative positions that I think are fucking gross. So I'm conflicted about this a little bit, because I think overall any blow that's being dealt to like Keir Starmer and the Labour Party is a good thing at this time. I think it's good that they're losing what should be Labour strongholds over their position on Palestine. I think it's good in a way that there's going to be an MP that's going to have a platform to talk about these issues, to talk about Gaza, to talk about Ukraine, to talk about Western foreign policy and empire and this kind of stuff. He is in like MAGA communist territory. And this is the problem with someone like him. And this is a source of constant frustration for me with some of these people. But again, I would like to know what you all think about it. Like I said, personally, I think Gaza needs to be the focus. I think Gaza needs to be the focus. And on that level, George Galloway is someone that's been a very unapologetic supporter of Palestinians for a long time. On that level. He was in the Rockdale by-election. Here he is.
Keir Starmer, this is for Gaza. You have paid and you will pay a high price for the role that you have played in enabling, encouraging, and covering for the catastrophe presently going on in occupied Palestine in the Gaza Strip. Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are two cheats.
Who the fuck are these people? What is with the UK? Who is this? Who's this guy? What is this? Are these just the people running in this by-election? Because there's always like wacky people running in these by-elections. What is it? What is with the UK? What a fucking weird place. I feel like we can sort out the finer political details of someone speaking for Palestine after the genocide has stopped. I think ultimately that's where I land with someone like this. That's what I mean. I think Gaza should be is the primary focus right now. And anything that's going to send any kind of a message to the political establishment, in this case like Keir Starmer, is going to be good. I think when Biden and people like Keir Starmer are hurt by their support of genocide, I think that's something that is ultimately a good thing. What I would like, though, is to have more people in these kinds of positions that are socially progressive and unapologetically anti-imperialist. And in fact, I find it really kind of confusing and perplexing why we don't ever seem to really see that. We're seeing it a little bit in South. Speaking of South Africa, with the
You can count on
EFF
me.
leader.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Rob, you should get that suit as a celebration of 40 months of subscribers.
Thank you, Netlocked, for 40 months, tier 1. That's so many months. Jesus Christ, Netlocked, thank you. There's a difference between this is a good thing and we should be excited about this specific guy. Yeah, and I think that's a good way of looking at it. But that's what I mean. I don't understand why this is so difficult. Like, why can't we just have a political movement in the West that supports progressive social issues, supports LGBTQIA plus people who are under assault constantly, and also is unapologetically anti-empire and like anti-imperialist? Why is that so difficult? I find that very frustrating. Because outside of George Galloway's foreign policy views, and people were saying like LaRoucheite as well, it's very like of that tradition. And even the whole Workers' Party thing is a little bit worrying as well. But outside of these foreign policy issues, George Galloway on these social issues is a huge dipshit. I saw there was this thing of like mailers that he was doing in this by-election where to certain neighborhoods he's sending information about his stance on Gaza, and to certain neighborhoods he's sending like bullshit like what is a woman, and I'm gonna be able to call a woman a woman, and this kind of like
You're gonna
turf
have good
stuff.
old Rob to talk you through all this.
What are we supposed to do? Keep the bombs in storage.
Thank you, Dude Control, for 6 months, tier 1. Thank you. And I guess you can't really single out someone in the UK political establishment for being a TERF, because it's like it seems to be just like the dominant ideology in this fucked up backwards island, which I can't really explain. But I think it's sick, you know. It's like, and I don't think you can really realistically claim to stand up for oppressed people around the world if you don't stand up for oppressed and marginalized people in your own goddamn country. That is a contradiction. So like I said, I find it really conflicting. Like it goes back to this tweet from Steve Sweeney, who's like, I think he's like an RT guy. So the seismic victory of George Galloway in Rockdale is a beacon of hope for oppressed people across the world from Gaza to Donbass, as well as a blow to the pro-imperialist Labour Party. It should and will be celebrated by progressives everywhere. The thing is, this is what I don't understand. And I think it's great that George Galloway and some others are standing up for oppressed people across the world from Gaza to Donbass. But you know who's also oppressed is trans people in the UK. You know? Why can't we stand up for those oppressed people? It's like I want to stand up for oppressed people from Gaza to the Donbass, but I want to contribute to the oppression of people in my own society. And fearmonger about them and protecting kids and protecting women or whatever. And I'm pretty sure this guy's a Catholic as well. And Catholics that fixate on protecting children and trans people and stuff, I think are incredibly suspect, considering the legacy of Catholicism and what that has meant for many millions of children. RT really cornering market on better foreign policy, reactionary social views. For sure. This is like the Russian synthesis, basically. Like this is what a lot of these like Russian chauvinist types, this is what they take the stance on. And I think some people have this kind of misguided idea that because certain other cultures around the world in the global south might have more reactionary social views, we must tail those views, right? Which I think is just backwards. And I do not agree with this idea. And I think we can take bold, unapologetic stances against empire without tailing reactionary views of like Russia or whatever other country. Should we as genuine Canadian anti-imperialists then be focused first and foremost on decolonizing our own situation? I mean, it needs to be a focus, kill panic. I guess this is my view, is that the primary contradiction, the primary contradiction, as Lenin teaches us, is anti-imperialism, which is the power of the Western countries, the rules-based international order. America, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, France, Germany, whatever. And that needs to be dismantled first and foremost. And I think decolonization domestically is part of that process. But I think overall, it's the primary contradiction is doing whatever we can to destroy that machine, that imperialist machine. So I don't know if that answers your question. I guess my point is, though, that like it's not, while that like that's a goal that we need to pursue, decolonization, get land back, and I agree with that. I think ultimately the focus needs to be on destroying or minimizing or destabilizing the power structures of these imperialist countries to end their ability to invade, subvert, destabilize countries around the global south, around the world. We can destroy the imperialist machine by decolonization. Well, I guess my point is, though, that like, let's say we focused on this Canadian aspect and giving land and decolonizing Canada. And we did that, which would be an incredible achievement, remarkable achievement. You would still my point, I guess, is that you would have still the United States of America, still leading that machine regardless. Anyway, it's an interesting question. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to have the definitive answers on that. If we can do both of these things simultaneously, I think we should do that. Believe me, I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression about what I think about this kind of stuff. Anyway, I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about the George Galloway thing. George Galloway says a lot of things about foreign policy that I agree with. And you can take some of these like MAGA communist guys or patriotic socialists or whatever you want to call them. I often find myself agreeing with what these folks say about foreign policy. But then they have this fucked up idea that, we must tail these reactionary social beliefs. We can't talk about colonialism here. We can talk about settler colonialism in Israel, but we can't talk about settler colonialism in Canada or the United States. And that I think is ridiculous. And I think we absolutely can stand with oppressed and colonized people around the world while simultaneously supporting oppressed and marginalized people in our own society, whether they're black and brown or other racialized people, indigenous people, or LGBTQIA people. I think we can do all of that simultaneously. And if we have differences with other nations about how to treat some of these groups, well, we can talk about that once we are successfully able to resolve this imperialist contradiction. It's classic fascist tactics to pay lip service to Marxist talking points while bolstering reactionary culture. Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing, like the whole MAGA communism. It is like nationalist socialism with these very reactionary social views. And that can be a toxic mix. And that's why I'm a little concerned with this like Galloway thing as well, even though I support someone that supports Gaza dealing giving a bloody nose to the Labor Party machine. I think that's good. He's also starting this like workers' party based around these kinds of like nationalist or reactionary views in conjunction with this kind of anti-imperialism, which could be not so good. Has this ever been tried before, and what were the results? We should maybe look into history at that. We should take a look at that, about how that's worked out in the past. Anyways, I think that's ultimately where I come down right now. George Galloway's election, no matter what I personally think about him, it's a major bloody nose to the Keir Starmer and the Labour Party machine. And anything right now that sends a message to these fucking people that supporting this genocide is going to cost them, I think is a good thing. No, Jane Mnemonic, I've not read that, no. Anyway, folks, in just 9 minutes, myself and Jordan Ewell, we're going to talk to Dan Boguslaw of The Intercept about their explosive story about the New York Times and this roving rape gang hoax, which the New York Times perpetrated on all of us. That's going on in 9 minutes from now. Before that happens, if you do want to support this program where we talk about these things and we have these conversations and we try to debunk and criticize and offer alternative viewpoints to the hegemonic mainstream narrative, which, like we were talking about before, instantly gives Israel all the credibility that it could possibly want and instantly treats every claim that is made by Israel as being the gospel truth.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
If you enjoy how on this show we try to not do that, please subscribe if you can. Doc Not So Strange, thank you for the gifted sub. I appreciate it. And if anyone else wants to support this program, I hope that this show has been helpful or useful to people over the last couple of months, which has been a really fucked up time, a time where I think talking about these subjects frankly and unapologetically is really important. I've done a lot of coverage of this, had a lot of really great conversations about Palestine over the last couple of months. If you do support this program and you want to help support the work that I do on here, folks, please subscribe if you can. It's $5 a month. You get all the tiny little images. You become part of the community. And other things as well. Other positive things happen. If you have an Amazon Prime account, it is completely free to subscribe. If you have an Amazon Prime account,
you're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Oh, Robert, guess what today is? I hope you got me flowers or I'm leaving you forever.
Dr. Maggot, thank you for 26 months tier 1. Are you saying it's your birthday? Is it your birthday today? Is that what you're suggesting? And obviously I knew that. Obviously. Obviously I knew that. And the flowers are on the way. Yeah. I think journalists that knowingly lie to sell a genocide should be thrown into Rikers. I don't think we... I don't think sometimes we talk about this and we don't really respect the gravity of it. Yeah, like Nazi propagandists went on trial in Nuremberg and were hung. Like when you use your position in media to sell people a lie which leads to the mass murder of tens of thousands of people, that's not just like, oh, whoops. They were hanged. Thank you. You know what I mean? You sell a lie to people that contributes to the death of tens of thousands of little children That's not something you should just be able to walk away from. I made a little mistake. That's a crime. That's a crime. You're an accessory to mass murder at that point. You know, the idea that like, oh, it's just this, we made a little mistake on this one. We got this one wrong. The whole thing about WMDs in Iraq. Oh yeah, sorry about that. We got that one wrong. We trusted the word of the CIA and the United States security establishment, national security establishment, and they were lying to us. Well, as a fucking journalist, you should understand that that's what these people's jobs are, to lie about these very things. The exact same way that the IDF is lying today. Oh, they lied to us. We just didn't know. Well, maybe you shouldn't accept this, what these people say, these fucking psychos, as the gospel truth. How about that? There are some streamers whose names rhyme with Festiny who might be in trouble. I just finally had to block that person. I just don't have any interest in seeing what they have to say. There's no purpose. I found myself like typing out some replies to fucking Destiny the other day, and I was like, no, like there's no reason. It doesn't help. All it does is help him to when he's his bullshit childish outrage bait takes, you know, all it does is help him to pile on, to do reaction videos, to do debates or whatever it is. Like there's no positive to engaging with anyone like that in any way. Blocking terminally online trolls saves you so much mental health.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Yappin'.
Really chill guy. Thank you for 39 months. One of the longest subscribers. Really chill guy. Thank you. We're gonna podcast in just a moment. Anyway, yeah, I just fucking blocked him. I don't want to see anything that this fucking loser says anymore. I don't want to engage with any of it. He's tried a number of times to try and bait me into like responding. He often like quote tweeted me and like has asked me to come and debate with them, whatever, which I've repeatedly said, no, I have no interest in. I've repeatedly been like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't have any interest in ever speaking with you for any reason. You know? So I just finally blocked him. I just don't want to see, I don't have anything to do with him. He was, if you'll remember, he was the one when I made that objectively true statement about the United States forming an alliance with the Nazis after World War II. That statement that I made that was 100% correct. And he tried to, I still have people from his fucking fanboys coming and being like, but you said that they made an alliance with the Nazis. Don't you know the Nazis didn't exist after World War II? Boo. Fucking losers. And he's literally, yeah, he supports a genocide that's killed tens of thousands of little kids. I saw him joking around about Aaron Bushnell, who fucking burned himself alive because his government was engaging in this kind of horrific mass murder campaign. And this guy's fucking laughing about it and mocking it. And I was just like, I can't deal with this guy. Just a sick person. A sick person who's had his mind just whatever thought process or reasoning power that he had at one time has been completely melted just by this online debate pervert bullshit. I guess this is a good title for this segment here. Debate pervs are the worst. No one ever changes their position. They just yell at each other.
Good old Rob.
That's exactly why I didn't. When he asked me to come and do that bullshit, I was like, no, absolutely not. Fuck you. No, I will not be debating you about anything. And all these people are like, oh, you're afraid to do it. No, I would just rather do anything else. I would rather stab myself in the dick with a fountain pen than do that. It's just a waste of everyone's time. Maybe it would be good for my career. Maybe it would be good for building an audience. But like, I would rather not even do that. I would rather not sink to that level. I believe he did debate Norm finally, because I saw him like complaining about it, saying he talked too slowly. Okay, folks. Well, we're going to talk now to Dan Boguslaw of The Intercept. For the Insurgents podcast. I'm going to go ahead and mute alerts. If you do want to support the channel at any point, I appreciate it. And if you do, I will make sure to thank you after we're finished here.
Oh, Jesus.
Because, like, we just decided, like, this shit show at The Intercept is so crazy. Like, to just do it so that I can get on her health insurance if need be.
God.
Can you guys hear me?
Anyways, I'm really sorry. I hate when people forget, like, a meeting, or, like, especially something like this, not just a meeting. It's, like, a fucking show. It's, like, I know that pisses me off in an insane degree. Yeah. So I'm really sorry.
I know it wasn't intentional. It's all good. All right, Rob's here. I'm going to let him in, and then he'll be able to hear your audio, and it'll be live.
All right.
Cool?
Yep.
I'm glad nothing
Rob,
spicy was said there. Hello, check. Check. Hello. 2.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes. Is this okay? Sorry about the lack of cameras, because I'm live now. Just so there's no outrageous statements made. Just to be clear, we're currently live.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make that before anyone said anything too wild here.
What is this? We got call center Dan now.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Wait, talk again?
Check.
Oh, your mic got...
Check.
Your mic is like kind of tinny.
It's tinny? Okay, was it better without the call center?
Can you use the input on your computer for your audio, but then have the output go to your headphones? Is that an option?
All right, how's that?
That's good.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's more robust. Your voice is more robust with this microphone. Okay. We can get started here.
Yeah.
Any questions, Dan?
I was just wondering if I could rep my sponsor, Zyn. I've recently done an article about Zyn.
Did you really do an article about Zyn?
Yeah. I've got a new article about Zyn up on my Substack.
Is that like caffeine stuff?
No, it's nicotine.
No, it's pure synthetic nicotine.
Oh.
Been wanting to write about Zyn. Curious where it comes from. What is it? So I did took a little look, and it turns out that all American Zyn is manufactured in a single union factory in Kentucky, which means that if the workers rise up, they could shut down Zyn across America, grinding all manual labor to a total standstill. I reached out to the UAW for comment about whether Zyn and the Zyn factory will be incorporated into their Southern unionization drive. They did not respond to that query, but I just want to put it out there to listeners that the workers.
We should save this. We should save this for when we're recording.
just saying.
I like it.
It's real.
That's I use it for when I go to concerts, and you can't vape indoors. I'll just pop a Zyn.
Yep.
I'm not endorsing it. I think it's bad. It's bad for your health. No one should do it.
We don't know that.
But
we don't know that.
I can't imagine there's.
It's
No,
like
it's
diet.
definitely
product free from
it's
risks.
definitely fucking poison. Yeah.
It's
but,
like Diet
yeah.
Coke. It's a wonderful invention.
Yes.
It's got no downsides. You get
Exactly.
it's like 99% water. You get some caffeine in there. It's very refreshing.
Yeah.
I don't
Save
see
the
the
riffs
issue.
for when we're recording.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought maybe we already
All right.
got in there.
No. All right. From the top. And now we're joined by Dan Boguslaw. Dan, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a slow news week for you.
Yeah.
It's been a slow dribble. It's been an icicles dribble, cold like a witch's teat.
Is it cold in DC?
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Gotta go outside. All right.
Here in Montreal, it was like a super warm, like spring day, Thursday, and then Wednesday, super warm, and then Thursday, like 30 degrees colder, absolutely freezing cold, like the very next day. It was really jarring and didn't feel good at all.
Yeah, things are not going well.
Yeah.
For the weather.
So here's the question that I have. Do we try and recreate the banter we were just doing prior to turning on the record button? That never seems to work out. We had a good little riff going before,
Well,
and do we
I
try
will-
and get back into that? That's always really tricky.
I'm just going to say, look, if you're a listener, if you're a nicotine user, if you're a leftist, check out my Substack, Trigger Discipline, where I investigate Zyn, looking into the single union factory in Kentucky that manufactures every tin of American Zyn. They hold the power to shut down trucking, to shut down call centers, to shut down any boring, horrible fucking job. These guys shut it down. And so I reported on how in Philip Morris's 10K, they're extremely concerned about their single Zyn factory. It could destroy their whole business model. The workers, this international union controls the means of production. Check it out.
This is International Union.
Yep.
Wait, so within their filings, is there any acknowledgement or plans to diversify or establish a second factory? I'm so curious how they have this product, which is extremely popular from what I can tell. That they only manufacture at one place.
I think basically what happened was like there was like a Swedish company that owned this plant, and then like Philip Morris has been investing in like vape and like smokeless tobacco products. So they bought this one plant, and then like somehow Zyn just like became a meme and took off, and like it's like a huge plant. Like I think it's like 500 workers, which is big, and the revenue is just like out of control. And I think they probably will expand, but I think it's moving so fast that they haven't been able to recalibrate.
Yeah, they have a big fan in Tucker Carlson. I keep getting
Oh
his
yeah,
video on Instagram.
I texted Tucker Carlson for his perspective, and he didn't want to comment.
Unfortunate. He like pretty publicly quit nicotine. He was a big Nicorette user up until 2019. He tried to quit in spring of 2019. The only reason I know this is because that's when I was doing the advertiser boycott campaign. So I was watching Tucker every night, and he would talk about it. But he had been a smokeless tobacco and nicotine user for like decades. So I guess he's back. I guess he's back on the Zyn because I see this video on Instagram all the time of people delivering him the world's largest tin of Zyn. Have you seen this?
It's a good video.
I saw him like hanging out with some like Zoomers, some like weird Zoomer podcasters, or whatever, who gave it to him.
The Nelk Boys.
Okay,
Full send.
I don't know about the Nelk Boys. I guess I'm not quite hip enough for that. That's good that he's being kind of promoted to that generation, I guess, as like a cool guy.
Yeah. It's like kind of the Barstool, Tucker Carlson, Nelk crowd. Like, I mean, that Nelk boys enterprise did a sit down with, I think, Trump a year or two ago.
Nelk boys? I've never heard of this.
Yeah, the Full Send podcast.
Weird. Could I try something I've been workshopping really quick here?
You got like you got like a tight 15 or what?
This is like just a little something that could be a good transition. This is Jerry Seinfeld responding to the events of October the 7th. The other day, I got asked to condemn Hamas. I thought they were asking me to condemn hummus. What's next? Guacamole? Come on!
Oh, that would fucking kill
Good.
in 97.
Yeah.
You think people would like that?
I think you should pitch that to him.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just send him your packet, and it's just that.
Side project I've been cultivating.
Anyway, the most important thing about this Zyn stuff is that it's totally normal and healthy, and it's good to do, just like Diet Coke. It's good. It's a wonderful invention. It's like 99% water. You get some caffeine in there. Nothing wrong with it.
No, people love it.
That's right.
You just take out a slimy wad from your mouth, stick it on a wall or
wonderful
some other surface
yeah,
near
who
you.
Who doesn't love that?
Yep.
And now I'm really just reusing jokes from the banter prior to joining. So, but I wanted to get my shit in, so that's what we got to do.
One thing I wanted to talk about briefly before we got into the story that Dan, or the stories that Dan worked on this week that I think are very important. The reaction to the outcome in Michigan earlier this week for this vote uncommitted campaign. They received over 100,000 uncommitted votes in the primary. And the way that is being spun by liberals, Biden loyalists, the Biden team is, well, you're only helping Trump. And there's one kid, and not to assign political power to a Zoomer TikToker who just loves the Democrats, but I saw one kid even go so far as to say you're a terrorist if you voted uncommitted. I just want to take a second to think about how we have reached this point.
Yes.
Where the just get out and vote. Voting is so important, and we have to protect democracy. But if you put uncommitted on a primary ballot in a basically uncontested primary, you are a terrorist. That's something I think we can all align with, right?
No, yeah. There's no lies detected there. No, and it gets to a fundamental point, which is that the American people are the terrorists. If you don't fall in line behind one of the two major political parties, both of which are calling for unchecked war and bloodshed, then you are a terrorist. The blood of American civilians is on your hands, and you should be put in jail. And that's it. So I think that really gets to the heart of things.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that I was thinking about that. First of all, like you said, Jordan, like this is what liberals say is the way that you can participate in democracy. You don't protest, especially when it comes to Israel-Palestine. No, don't protest. Don't say certain words and slogans and sayings. It makes people upset and uncomfortable. Don't boycott. But what you can do is vote. You can vote for, and listen, we have one party that supports genocide and one party that supports genocide even more. So you can vote for the less bad option. But even when people organize around these democratic institutions, in this campaign that came together really quickly over a span of 2 weeks, and they say no, that's still bad. That still helps Trump. All you can do is just vote for the Democratic Party. That's the one thing that you can do. But I also thought it funny seeing these kind of this spin coming from people that are connected to the sort of Democratic Party establishment, kind of bragging, almost like we easily defeated uncommitted in Michigan after 100,000 people were organized to come out and send this message to the Democratic Party in a really short time frame. And then the incumbent sitting president's we easily defeated the fact that people were coming to show up in this useless primary to vote for nobody rather than vote for us. And they're trying to spin that like it's this cool accomplishment that they did. I thought that was very funny as well.
Meanwhile, I think it was Washington, one of the biggest unions came out and endorsed uncommitted. Mm-hmm. So it definitely has momentum. And I think the other part of the narrative is like this is a hyper dense Arab American population, in Michigan, and so that it's also not representative of a serious threat. And it's like, no, actually, a lot of people watched this closely and saw that a campaign like this could be organized, and it seems like it's being replicated effectively in other states.
Yeah, and what people are looking at, oh, it's only 100,000, and Biden got what's 500, 600,000 votes. Like, I mean, this is a state with a population of 10 million, and the primary turnout is already much lower than general election turnout. So, if you were to apply that same ratio to general election turnout, that's really troubling. And it's not that they'll vote for Trump, it's that those people might just not show up, or many of them might not even show up at all. It's a problem of turnout, not that they're supporting Trump. The response should be, okay, these people are in our base, they are registered as Democrats. How do we win them over? It's not we ignore them and then risk them sitting out. It's how do we incentivize them to show up? And this is a problem that Democrats never seem to respond to. It's, well, we're just going to change nothing and they'll figure it out by November. You can't bank on that. It didn't work in 2016. It's a core element of politics. Is how do you meet people where they're at, address their needs, speak to their needs, and give them something or some reason to show up? And it's just like a sense of entitlement, self-righteousness, that they are unwilling to do that when these people are very clearly in their base and often a key to victory.
Yeah, I also was really struck this week. There was, they started doing air drops of aid into Gaza, and it just opens up this whole realization of like, the U.S. has provided targeting support, they've provided intelligence support to the Israelis, they've provided all these resources. And there's been this constant debate about, oh, we can't get trucks through the border, blah, blah, blah. And like, then all of a sudden it reaches a certain point and a switch goes off and these airdrops start happening. And then you're like, well, why couldn't this have been going on all, the whole time? It's certainly, whatever the State Department says about, airspace or, difficulties in collaboration, we know from the reporting of my colleagues and others that there is no problem with collaboration. And so I think, it's also just a question of like, they're not even doing the bare minimum. They're not even trying to play both sides and meet pro-Israel and pro-Palestine people in the middle at all. Like the notion of airdropping in food was an afterthought. It wasn't even written into one of the options apparently early on in this conflict. So I think that further throws gas on the fire.
Yeah, and I mean, instead you have instead of what you're describing, you have Joe Biden sucking down an ice cream, just being like, "Yeah, maybe we're gonna get a ceasefire by Monday, Jack," or whatever. And that's like the most that he says about it, which I found exceptionally grotesque at any time. But it was the day after a United States Air Force serviceman burned himself alive in protest of his own government's responsibility and complicity in this genocide in Gaza. And the contrast between Aaron Bushnell and what he did with Biden the next day just nonchalantly having a sweet little tasty treat and just making up some bullshit about a possible ceasefire coming, which obviously never materialized. And I think that's what they would say is trying to meet in the middle. Like, yeah, after tens of thousands of people have been murdered, then we'll maybe talk about a brief pause in the killing, which is going to, of course, resume shortly afterwards. And that's the compromise. That's the trying to appease both sides that they would indicate. Like it's just absolutely gross.
Also, we saw this week, Biden and Trump went down to the border for basically photo ops and to talk about immigration. And Biden invited former President Trump to work together on a border bill while challenging congressional Republicans to show a little spine. And
great.
It's these things together. It's the repudiating uncommitted voters. It's nonchalantly and lazily suggesting maybe there will be a ceasefire as we see atrocity after atrocity. And then yet again, asking Republicans for a harsh border bill. Like, all of these things together are going to turn people off. It's going to discourage turnout. And it just seems like they're walking into a repeat of 2016 where people are just fed up with Democratic leadership, a Democratic administration. And it's not that they want Trump, and they're fully aware of the risks and the dangers and the consequences. It's just that they are so fed up with this party. They're so fed up with the people in control and the way that these people don't respond to the crises that Trump exacerbates. Right. I can't imagine. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that they refuse to do anything about this.
Yeah, and to me, it's just like we go back to the whole Michigan thing. It's the complete inability to even think about changing course at all. Like, in the contempt that they have for people that try to use these kind of democratic institutions to try and put pressure on their elected officials, which is exactly what these institutions are supposed to do. And the total unwillingness to say, like, maybe we should reconsider this. Like, maybe we should reconsider our unequivocal support for this series of the most horrendous crimes that we could possibly imagine. Perhaps that's contributing to some kind of alienation. Perhaps that's hurting us in our base of people that we need to rely on in these states. And like, there's just zero effort to do that at all. Like, just even genuinely from like a cynical, like, electoral standpoint, it's crazy to me. Zero effort whatsoever to engage with the arguments that these groups are making. Zero effort at all to change their course or to change their strategy at all. Instead, these people are just treated with total contempt, and they just get talked about like they're petulant babies. Oh, you're just voting on this one issue, like it's this minor thing with like the mass murder of tens of thousands of little kids. It's amazing to me, and it's just, I find it repeatedly just totally stunning the way that there's just no effort whatsoever to change their strategy at all.
Yeah, I just think that, it is unfortunate that there's a failure to recognize the reality that we survived 4 years of Trump, that even after he won the presidency, stacked the Supreme Court, tried to gut the federal government as deep to the bone as he could, the crippled and decrepit institutions of democracy prevailed. And I think that there is a cognitive dissonance on the left where people think that the way to preserve democracy is by ceding to the demands of a party, the Democratic Party, that is completely controlled by the Israel lobby and corporate interests. And so there's a total breakdown in people being able to recognizing that standing up for your beliefs is what democracy is, and that it is not cowering in fear that if you do that, democracy will crumble. It's a completely counterintuitive retreat from the ideals that these liberals are screaming about protecting.
Did you by chance see that clip of Nina Turner on election night on CNN on that panel talking about the results? She was providing context to this. This is why they're upset, and we need to think about how we talked about people like Representative Rashida Tlaib in Michigan when this conflict broke out, and her emotions, her reaction, her comments. She was called abhorrent. I think she was censured at one point. And as she was trying to provide that context, not just Anderson Cooper, who was the host and the moderator of that hour, other panelists were jumping down her throat. She was the only person who was on that panel that could reasonably speak to Palestinian interests. And it was like David Axelrod, a former Trump administration official, Caitlin Collins, and then Bakari Sellers.
Axelrod's an Obama guy.
Yeah. But Bakari Sellers has long-standing ties to AIPAC, and he also runs a PAC, a space PAC, that received like $1 million at least from some Republican mega donor who also helps fund AIPAC. And he's like jumping in to be like, well, they're suffering on both sides. It's like, look, man, that's not why people are voting this way. And just like to compare the two and to try to equivocate was just totally disingenuous. But at one point, Anderson Cooper's like, we don't need a lecture. You're
Clearly
talking,
you do,
like, you're trying to talk about 100,000 people in this state who are upset, so upset that they're willing to participate in this organized campaign on primary day, and you don't even want to have a discussion about why they're doing that. What is the root cause here? It was just really spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, I think also I want to say people are suffering on both sides, and in the same way that there's an insane, perverse, incoherent logic with the liberal mainstream in the United States arguing against advocacy for beliefs that go against the party line. It's also critical to realize that the interests of the Israel lobby fundamentally destabilize Israel society and security, and not only the physical security, but the social fabric of Israel, and that this war is against the interests of the Israeli population. And so I think that's an important point. You know, I've spoken on this show before about reporting in Israel and my family connections there. And, I think it's an important point to also make that this is bad for everyone and goes against everyone's interests and is ludicrous. It's a ludicrous line to take, saying that people are suffering on both sides, and that's why the violence should continue.
Yeah. I guess just the one counterpoint that I would make to that is that there is a massive discrepancy in who's been suffering, especially over the last 5 months, but overall as well. Yes. In the conflict. And the reality is as well, even though I agree with what you're saying, that it does have this destabilizing effect, it does make Israel less secure, it does make Israeli people less safe, but there's also widespread support for this war among the Israeli population. There's been repeated polling on this that shows like a vast majority of people in Israel do actually support the ongoing conflict, and many want it to escalate even more. So that's probably something we need to keep in mind also.
No, absolutely. And I think I've spoken previously, it was just about how indoctrinated the entire, civilian population is. And I mean, civilian population is somewhat of a misnomer given the fact that, mandatory conscription. But one other point I would just add is it also dramatically impacts American and American national security as well. I mean, I don't think that this is one thing I've hungered for more reporting on. I do not think that the full impact of the wave of radicalization that is going to develop from this conflict has been analyzed or can even be analyzed at this point. I mean, we are living through a scale of violence that is being recorded and distributed on the internet that I don't think has really ever happened before. And the impact that will have on mass radicalization is going to be dramatic. And I don't think anybody has touched on that really.
Yeah. We haven't even begun to experience the ultimate fallout and blowback from what we've been supporting there in both the United States and Canada, which it's going to be being felt for decades, though, certainly. Dan, we should really talk about this story in The Intercept, Between the Hammer and the Anvil, which you co-published along with Jeremy Scahill and Ryan Grimm, which is confirmed what I think there had already been prior reporting on this and what a lot of people already believed about specifically the New York Times article that came out December 28th, Screams Without Words, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th. We talked about this around that time when that piece came out. I thought it was this whole narrative about Hamas using the systemic, intentional, like roving Arab rape gangs kind of narrative or trope that was promoted, which really picked up steam shortly after that first ceasefire ended. And there was that brief ceasefire. There was some hostages that were exchanged. There was a possibility that it might extend into the future. And then, of course, Israel begins bombing Gaza again. The violence resumes. And while there's kind of outrage about that, there's this narrative that gets promoted by all these different sources about these Hamas rape gangs of October 7th. And that was what this piece focused on. So I would just we'd like to hear from your perspective, working on this story where you have contributed to this reporting that has turned into a huge scandal, I think, with the New York Times about this story and about how flimsy it is and who was writing it and reporting it. Do you just want to talk a little bit about your perspective of how this piece came together and what your understanding is of this New York Times story?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, this story is an attempt to explain the various power networks that shape news and trying to highlight the inconsistencies in the editorial process for foreign reporting that exist between places like Israel and places like Ukraine or really anywhere else in the world. And, you know, I think it's one thing to point out hypocrisy or point out, you know, egregiously hedged headlines. But what we've tried to show over the course of our reporting with the New York Times and other media outlets is the fundamental editorial structures, the leadership decisions, the way in which certain journalists are prioritized over others, despite track records of error or biased reporting. And, you know, I think the sort of exegesis of this story really tries to get at that by showing step by step, you know, how were these reporters brought together? What did their reporting process look like? And how does that compare to other reports and other, you know, other standard reporting procedures that were not followed? I think one of the biggest points of contention is, you know, who is viewed as a legitimate source. You know, a lot of the sourcing in that piece came from Zaka, you know, these ultra-Orthodox first responders who made decisive claims as though they were experts on sexual violence. And when you drill down and actually look at both their statements and the history of misleading statements that some of the members of this organization have made in the past, you see that basically what they say is a lot of their conclusions are vibes based. They basically say, you know, it's not about the facts, it's about the feeling that we got, you know, exhuming these corpses and, you know, our intuition as first responders. And, you know, time and time again, the Israeli government has failed to produce forensic evidence substantiating these claims. And that was a trend that came up over and over again in the course of this reporting on other news organizations, is when you drill down, when you look at the base level of claims that have been repeated and compiled into reports and packaged together in a way to add legitimacy, you find that at the fundamental level, there's no one who can give hard first-person confirmation of almost any of these claims.
That's what was, I wouldn't say surprising, but just, I guess, frustrating as I read it. At multiple opportunities, the reporter that you kind of follow in this piece, Anat Schwartz, someone who didn't really have a lot of journalism background or no real journalism background.
It's great. You just go right to the front page of the New York Times.
Yeah, at multiple points in the course of her reporting, she's basically presented and doesn't realize it with this thought, like, nothing is being confirmed here. There are no sources, there's no evidence, there's nothing that would validate these claims, especially of mass, systemic, and organized, you know, attacks like this. And still she presses on, and it was the way you detail this story. Then she saw somebody on TV or saw some most of the time these people had affiliations with that organization or had positions in the IDF, and they are repeating these claims. They're talking about these things happening. And she's like, well, okay, clearly it must be happening. It can't just be that this didn't happen. This didn't exist. Maybe there were isolated incidents, which happens in war. I mean, you acknowledge that. It could have happened. It could have been someone who left Gaza and went into, a kibbutz and did it. But the idea that operatives were doing this in an organized manner just was not proven.
And is a narrative that has been employed many times before, including recently in Libya. This exact narrative was promoted that Gaddafi's forces were taking Viagra and using sexual violence as a weapon in this exact way to justify intervention and to justify this kind of violence. Yeah.
There was an editorial meeting you talk about where they gathered Middle East reporters from the staff to kind of try to poke holes to make their coverage more thorough and fortify it. And they're asking explicitly, like, where's the evidence? And they basically admit, like, okay, where there isn't any. But then the other reporter, oh God, his name is escaping me, Gettleman. Jeffrey Gettleman acknowledges at some point, like, we don't really need evidence for this. We don't really need proof for this. Like, I can't imagine any other circumstance in which the New York Times, with a prestige, first, A1 story, would just say, well, we don't really need any proof for this kind of a story.
Well, there's an interesting video of Gettleman that was circulating where he was invited to speak at like a Columbia has a program or some Columbia affiliated program around sexual violence. And I think he's being interviewed by Sheryl Sandberg? Yeah.
Yeah. Lean in.
And he basically says, I don't like to use the term evidence because that's a legal forensic term. My job is to just kind of collect vibes and shape them and massage them and then put them out. And it's a shocking admission. I mean, I have to say that this whole time reporting all of this, it is so bizarre to hear some of these statements. It makes you feel like you're going crazy because that is not what reporting is. In fact, reporting is about collecting evidence and it's about making it airtight. And if you don't have it airtight, then it's about making that extremely clear, because that is a fact in and of itself, that the facts are eluding you. And that's okay. But then you have to write that and say that. And that's newsworthy. That's relevant. That's something that people can be informed about. That's something is difficult to report on or impossible to report on. But to say that your job isn't about reporting facts and using evidence is ludicrous. And I think really betrays something fundamental about his perspective on reporting, that he's some sort of maestro conducting, a song to his own liking instead of a job, which is collecting information and relaying it.
Yeah, and I think it really speaks to a common phenomena that we see when it comes to our media here in the West and Israel, which is that we have these powerful media institutions that just seem to be inclined to just take everything Israel says, every claim that they make at face value, and just treat it as the gospel truth and kind of work backwards from there. And often this is done with the timing to disrupt certain other narratives. Like the most recent example that I can think of this was after the International Court of Justice ruling, which ruled that Israel could plausibly be accused of committing genocide and ordered the violence to stop, which was a major story. And then immediately after, almost the day after, there's this narrative that gets promoted in our media about UNRWA members participating in October 7th. And then rather than talk about the ICJ ruling, rather than investigating that claim, that gets repeated just as a fact by our media, by our political establishment, and we respond by cutting funding to this like vital humanitarian organization at a time when people in Gaza are starving. And this seems to be the same kind of a case. It was, like I said, there was also a specific narrative tied to this when this initial ceasefire ended, was when this really started to be promoted. And it seems like from your story, like you're mentioning, it's not just about the authors of the piece. I think there's all kinds of things we can dig into about these people and what their motivations and their backgrounds are. But it really seems like this came from the top down. When this claim got made, go and get us a story about this, find evidence for this, that this is true, so we can put it in our newspaper. And like Jordan was describing, it's like this process of her kind of desperately doing whatever she can to try and find something that can pass for evidence that they can turn into a major story, which then promotes this narrative, which justifies this ongoing genocidal mass murder campaign. Like it's incredibly sick the way that you see this process just happening over and over again.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there was a way to write this article about, there probably is some difficulty with forensic evidence with the rapid burials. But this article could have been an opportunity to do a straight piece of reporting, to talk about the still horrendous violence that happened on October 7th, and, to talk to people and give both sides, and also add some quotes about people saying that there's been a failure to provide forensic evidence, and to bolster the feeling of trust in the news organization, and to say, okay, thank you for presenting, the struggle and the difficulty and the confusion of this event. That's what I think a newspaper's job is to do the best job that they can and cop to the challenges where the ability to provide the necessary evidence for claims stops, and to flag that for readers. And, the idea that the piece couldn't have run without this, is ludicrous. There's a completely different piece that someone assigned for this project could have come up with. So it shows that at every step of the process, you had a reporter, and you had editors, and you had leadership just giving it the green light over and over and over again. And
I've got to talk a little bit about the content. Sorry, Jordan. I just have to mention something about the content of this article as well, because like this barely even qualifies as being like a journalistic enterprise here. Like this piece, it's front loaded with about 4 or 5 paragraphs of the most graphic, horrifying descriptions of sexual violence that you could possibly imagine. Just absolutely horrific, sick stuff. Front loaded, like I'm with the understanding that I think most people, that's going to be their takeaway. They read that and it just becomes like it's horrible and it's traumatizing. And then later, the rest of the piece is spent with this very kind of flimsy process of trying to explain how they're describing these kinds of stories. And it's like it's so insidious and manipulative the way that this piece was written. And the idea that this is like a piece of journalism is I think incredibly debatable just on that level. Like it's not really what real journalism is. It's purely like shock value, like almost like a written version of like a snuff film, basically, just designed to disgust people and designed to ensure that people continue to go along with this horrific campaign of violence that we've seen since that time. It's just, I was really taken aback by that and how completely outrageous that was and how horrifying some of these descriptions were, which, as we know now, weren't actually based in any kind of real evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, and I also just think it's a shame because, like, perhaps an unpopular opinion at this moment, but like there are extremely serious, committed, brilliant reporters and editors at the New York Times. Like there are people who like are bureau chiefs or are correspondents or are like people who are not just like sitting in an office, in Midtown, but people who've spent their whole lives learning about a region or a topic and are really good and knowledgeable and also conform to high journalistic standards. And it's just a shame that just with the fear that exists in our ecosystem right now, that those people consistently over, decades have been pummeled by the desire of newsroom leadership to insulate themselves from external critique. And I think, I have a lot of respect for journalists who put in the work and try to learn and try to be subject matter experts and try to actually show people what's going on, with the belief that people are intelligent and they can make their own conclusions, and that they don't have to, that's not their job to shape things, because, people can reach their own conclusions, and that's the right way to do things. So I also just think it's a shame that it delegitimizes the work of those people who are serious about it.
The context about who this reporter is, or the person who wrote this story is, and how this story came to light, and how it was flagged for people as worth looking into the backstory, I think is interesting. An anonymous Twitter account noticed that she liked a tweet saying that Israel needed to turn the Gaza Strip into a slaughterhouse and, quote, violate any norm on the way to victory. Those in front of us are human animals who do not hesitate to violate minimal rules. And as we've had, I think all of us have had friends who have worked at the Times or know people who've worked at the Times. They have a very strict social media policy, and they come down hard if you engage with any content that could even be seen as just somewhat partisan.
Even if you attended a pro-Palestine rally once in college, that's enough to keep you out a lot of these mainstream journalism circles.
Oh, for sure. And I'm just so curious, how this person got this prominent position or this prominent task or assignment with that kind of a history. It's just they weren't really exercising due diligence on who this person was. Again, it's just so confusing that she didn't have any real reporting experience. And despite the past online engagement, despite the lack of experience, and despite the lack of proof, they just turn a blind eye to all of it. And it reflects a problem throughout our media that they're intentionally, in some cases, maybe inadvertently, driving a narrative that ultimately is dehumanizing for people in Gaza, for Palestinians. And they're treating it as kind of like a spectator sport, and they're talking about the conflict in abstract or in passive language. And a good example of that this week was CNN framing the massacre of people in Gaza who were trying to obtain aid as a chaotic incident. And that led to Christiane Amanpour and other CNN staffers speaking out and asking questions and raising concerns internally. Dan, you have a new story about what's happening at CNN on that front. Could you update us on that?
Yeah. So actually, I obtained a leaked record of an internal CNN meeting from about 2 weeks ago, which took place at the London bureau with a sort of three-member panel comprised of CNN executives. And this was kind of supposed to be a sort of town hall about editorial vision and shifting priorities of the various arms of the CNN enterprise, but it quickly devolved into a interrogation of the executives over what staffers described as myriad failures to adequately cover the war. And the people asking questions about protocols and the decision to host incendiary guests, making incendiary comments, like the Israeli defense minister. They also raised concerns about the people on the ground and the way that the people on the ground were covering this. What types of access they were getting, and whether there should be reports without certain forms of access. And then the most high profile person to speak was Christiane Amanpour, the chief international correspondent, who basically raised similar concerns that staffers had raised with me a month ago over the protocol which CNN has in place to run every story concerning Israel or Gaza through a team of editors known as the Jerusalem Second Eyes, which is largely comprised of Jerusalem-based editors, to basically make sure that the language and framing and context of the piece is not subject to critique from pro-Israel factions. And so to have the chief international correspondent, who's an extremely well-respected journalist who's covered conflicts in the Gulf War, in Bosnia, say that this was, that there was a double standard here, really showed that, this is not the grumbling of a few low-level staffers. This is being felt and recognized at the highest levels of the organization. I've reported on it. The Guardian did a massive long story about discontent inside CNN. And now you have one of the most famous public-facing people in the organization, also coming out and saying it. And it's unclear if there's a mechanism of public pressure to make it change. I thought that maybe there was, but that seems more and more dubious maybe. But again, it shows that there's a disconnect between large swaths of the newsroom that are actually generating the work and the people at the top overseeing it and trying to sculpt the editorial reputation of the institution.
I think one of the things that a lot of mainstream journalists in our society kind of talk to us about is like this need to have like non-biased reporting, to present both sides of an issue, to make sure that there's no kind of conflict of interests or anything like this. But like we talked about, I think that's one of the amazing things we've seen, not just with this story, but like there's a number of other examples of like, not only so if you're a reporter and you go to a pro-Palestine protest in college and then that gets found out, you can lose your position because you're biased and you can't talk about Palestine because you're obviously some kind of like extremist activist or something. Where the ability to work with people that have direct connections with the IDF and putting these people in high positions in our mainstream media establishment is just, and having those people be the arbiters of like an editors for stories about Israel Palestine. And this is just presented without ever describing these kinds of like conflicts. Whether we talk about the co-writer of this piece, God, what's her name?
Anat?
Yeah. Whether you're talking about her or even people like Jeffrey Goldberg with The Atlantic, who is like the editor of a major American magazine, has this history of working with the IDF. And like, this is just part of our media establishment. And it's never really discussed, or this kind of possible bias or conflict of interest is never really talked about. Like, it's really amazing how this is presented as just being as part of our journalistic enterprises. Like if we had people in that were like part of the PRC, like Chinese expatriates that used to be part of the Chinese Communist Party or the PRC, editing major American or Canadian newspapers or magazines and then writing pro-China articles in the magazine, or with Russia or Iran or Venezuela or whatever other country that you want to pick, no one would be okay with that or consider that acceptable or consider that just to be like a normal, like non-biased journalist. But we can have people like with these literal ties to the Israeli government or even like the IDF or Israeli intelligence working in our media and promoting stories, just basically becoming stenographers for the Israeli government. And this process happens and no one ever really talks about it. I think it's truly amazing to me that this has been allowed to continue.
Yeah, it's wild.
Dan, we want to thank you for your time. Where can people follow you, find your reporting on the Zinternational Union and more of your work?
Yeah, check me out on Substack at Trigger Discipline and also at theintercept.com, where you can find under my name tag all the media reporting. I've largely been doing just media reporting for the past 3 months. You can find it all there.
Can I just make one more
yous.
point as well before we sign off here? Because I think this is an interesting capper to this story. Because you talked about Zaka and the role that Zaka played in providing some of the secondhand reporting that ended up getting passed for evidence in this piece. And we've talked about how problematic that is, and how, like, as an organization, they're not really credible. And I think something that I learned the other day that I was absolutely amazed by was that Zaka a couple years ago started a advisory board in New York City, and that on the board of Zaka in New York is this man, Stuart Seldowitz, who you might remember a few months ago
Yeah, right.
was literally arrested for harassing a Egyptian halal cart street vendor and going on these deranged racist rants about Palestinians and saying that, like, Palestinian children, it wasn't enough, whatever 5,000 children wasn't enough at that time. And, like, these are the people that are in these institutions. Not only wasn't as an advisor to Obama, and he's a part of the, like, American national security kind of establishment, he's also sitting on the boards of these organizations, which are then sharing information that gets laundered by the media and used to promote and defend and justify just the absolute worst, most depraved violence. I think it's pretty incredible when I learned this, and you see how the way this whole process works. It's just really sick. But I was just amazed to see Stuart Seldowitz on the board. Sits on the board of Zaka.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. I there's been so much crazy shit. I saw that and laughed, and then it got wiped from my hard
It's
drive.
been a lot. It's been a lot. Dan, thanks for joining the show. I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate you could come on and talk to us about this story.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Give it a second to upload. Why is yours yellow?
Me?
No, Dan. Oh, now it's green.
Okay.
His was just like stuck at 99. It was yellow. That was
Okay.
Had me a little worried.
Yeah. We don't want that.
No.
And remember, the mic is still hot, even though we're not recording. We are still technically live right now, just so we're all aware of that before we all start saying slurs and stuff. We don't want that.
Guys, I gotta jump. I'm talking to an old advisor.
Okay.
But thank you for having me on.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Thanks for joining
Sorry for
us.
the mix-up earlier. Okay. See ya.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, I'll shoot you a link for the intro.
Okay, we're going to do the intro. Okay. Got it.
All right.
Okay. That was good. I was going on I was going off there. I was going on some rants there. Anyway, we're just going to record a quick intro here. That will be the live podcasting portion. It's almost coming to an end here. Real how the sausage gets made, Howard. That's right. Exactly. You're seeing really behind the scenes. You're seeing the behind the scenes of the Insurgents podcast. Dare to say no to Zionism. Exactly. We all should dare to do just that. Hey, what's up?
What's up? All right, let's do this.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
I can. Yeah.
I thought Insurgents HQ was real. It is real, okay? We're in two different cubicles right now, that's all.
We're working remote. We do remote Fridays.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. We get to do the work from home thing. The interns, not so. They obviously have to go into the office.
They
but
have to go in.
Yeah, they have. That's mandatory. But
We had the discontinue casual Fridays after Ken kept wearing these obnoxious Hawaiian shirts that were just repulsive and giving everyone headaches because of the patterns.
He was wearing those like anime babes, the shirts, remember those? Making everybody uncomfortable. That's a deep cut. Remember that with the space launch thing when that was a big outcry? That was like 10 years ago now. God. Do you remember what I'm even talking about? There was like a NASA thing that was like this big celebration. And then like one of the NASA guys was like wearing this shirt that had all these like scantily clad like anime babes on it. And there was a big outcry over it. Like seeing you're fucking making all your coworkers and especially female coworkers feel uncomfortable, like wearing this kind of stuff. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And it was this big thing. It was like probably 2013 or 14.
The article that came up from 2014 was written by Rich Lowry, and it was, "We landed on a comet, and feminists are angry about a shirt." No, that is sexual harassment, dude.
Yeah,
you can't
just
do that in the fucking office.
Yeah, like you had NASA, like put on a shirt and tie or something. Like, come on.
I mean, just wear like a plain fucking t-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, what? This is insane.
Yeah, you can have your waifu pillow at home. You know, you just don't bring this to the office.
The picture of him he's soy facing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
DM. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, I can't believe that just randomly popped into my mind. I was thinking how funny it would be to have Ken wearing one of those shirts. Copy.
I think you could show
link.
it on stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna. This guy. This is what he was wearing to his like space launch. Oh, is it not working? Hold on, let me see. I want to expose my DMs with Jordan here. This guy. This is what he wore. Oh, that's good.
So good.
Classic. It was interesting back in 2013, 2014. We just didn't have that much stuff to think about. You know, we had to. I mean, and I agree that was like inappropriate workplace attire, but it seems like less of a big deal in the wake of some of the news stories that we're seeing currently, I guess.
Sure.
I don't want to say that it was okay. It was not okay. It was not okay to wear the shirt.
So absurd. Such a ridiculous thing to do. Ugh. All right.
Okay. Hey, Jordan, what's going on? Hey, Jordan.
Wait, do that again. I think you might have started too early.
Okay, I can't. I'm full screen. I can't see. Hey, Jordan, how's it going?
What's up, Rob?
Not much. You know, it's work from home Friday here at Insurgents HQ. Mm-hmm. I'm relaxed. I'm in my element. I'm at home. Happy that the interns are obviously still at the office. It's for us. It's for the main guys. We're allowed to. We need to make sure some people are still. None of these millennials don't want to work anymore. You know, these Zoomers, lazy. So I'm happy that they're at the office making everything work, and I'm happy to be back here. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's exhausting going into the office. I'm glad the interns are getting that work ethic, but I think we've put in our time with all of these episodes for 4 years now that, we're working at home.
Yep. And it's a great opportunity for them to do that.
Yeah. Commute builds character.
Exactly.
You know what I've been doing though, Rob?
What's that?
For the first time ever in my life, I'm watching The Sopranos.
Ooh, nice. No, it's funny. You mentioned that to me earlier, and I've been doing the same thing. I've watched some of The Sopranos. I remember I watched season 4 when that was going on, but I had never watched the early seasons as well. So I've been doing the same thing. I've been making my way through the first couple seasons as well. I'm on the beginning of season 3. How are you enjoying that?
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. There's always I'm so late to TV shows. I'm just not a big TV show person. I'm more of a movie guy. And I just watched Breaking Bad last year for the first time. Loved it. And I figured, now I'm it's 2024. The show is 25 years old. Now's a good time to get into The Sopranos. So I'm almost done with season 2, and it's fucking great.
Yeah, I think I've been having an interesting time watching it as well, because like similar with Breaking Bad, how like Walt became this like hero to people, and it's like, are we watching the same show? Like, this guy's obviously a really bad person. I get that he's the protagonist and like you can watch it on that level, but like you shouldn't be like idolizing this person or like making excuses for them. And I've noticed the same thing a little bit with Tony Soprano as well, who's obviously a really compelling character, amazing performance by James Gandolfini, but like horrible person, you know? And the idea that he ended up like, he has people and fans of the show that are like, yeah, Tony Soprano, all right. When he's like always doing this really terrible shit, you know? I think that's kind of interesting, the way that kind of anti-hero trope has become so prevalent in our media, and how people seem to be taking away a lot of the wrong lessons from that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It just seems like there's this pattern where people would just say, oh, this is the protagonist, I like him or I like her. And they can't think beyond just, oh, this is the main character. There's no recognition of their behavior being bad or inherently bad and objectively bad. Like, in both, they're monsters. Tony is framed, especially early, as more of a family man than Walt. You know, Walt pretty quickly turns into just a vile, terrible guy. And I think maybe because Tony is bad from the start, but in his weird way, quote, cares about his family more, despite like openly cheating on his wife that she knows about, being a pretty absent and shitty father, self-interested,
racist as
and
well.
And just like just all around bad guy. Just, well, this person is cool. He makes a lot of money. He's a boss. Like, I like him. Just weird. I like when shows do that, but I'm also not the type of person to be like, this guy rocks. It's just such a weird consumption habit that I don't get.
Yeah. No, it's really strange. But yeah, it's funny that we're both doing that. I feel like I've had this gap in my kind of like pop cultural knowledge over the last couple of years by not ever having seen that entire thing. So I have really been enjoying just watching it from the start.
Yeah, it's good.
Good. Well, we got a huge episode today. There's an absolutely explosive story going on right now with the New York Times. Their promotion of this narrative about systemic, intentional campaigns of rape and sexual assault and sexual violence, and that was used as part of the October 7th attacks. This narrative has been going on since October 7th, but this really crystallized in this New York Times piece, which came out, I believe, at the end of December, called Screams Without Words. And there's been a massive scandal over the last couple of weeks as that's been exposed as being just, the entire piece has fallen apart. It's being exposed as incredibly fraudulent. The main author of this piece had zero journalistic experience. It's all relying on this secondhand information from these extremely unreliable sources. Not since Judith Miller and the weapons of mass destruction type stuff, I think has New York Times faced a kind of like a crisis like this, or a scandal like this. And it is a scandal because this has been used to launder and justify this Israeli genocidal mass murder campaign going on in Gaza right now. So it's a huge story. It's a huge scandal. And we talked to today Daniel Boguslaw of The Intercept, who co-authored a piece with Jeremy Scahill and Ryan Grimm breaking this down, and he was able to come onto the show to speak to us about it. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it was a really good conversation. The Intercept story was really fascinating, and just through every step of this process that the New York Times undertook for this story, there were all of these red flags, like, hey, there's nothing really here, and they just charged on anyway, which is just a total abdication of journalistic ethics and standards. It's really remarkable. Before we get to that, earlier this week, I talked to Joshua P. Hill about a variety of different things. Taylor Lorenz's interview with Libs of TikTok, Next Benedict, Biden's comments on why he's a Zionist and how no Jews anywhere in the world are safe if Israel doesn't exist. And Aaron Bushnell's extreme act of protest. It was a really good, robust conversation. You can get that if you go to insurgentspod.com. Just $5 a month. You get that episode and every other premium episode we've ever done. You get an extra episode every week. And we really thank you for those of you that subscribe.
Yeah. I was sorry to miss out on that one. I was just on my way back to a little trip I took to Virginia. I was seeing the beautiful sights of Virginia, Quantico, Langley. Pretty much just those two places were the main places that I was visiting, but it was really fantastic. I enjoyed it. I was sorry I missed that because there was a lot of stuff that I did want to talk about that. But yeah, I thought it was a really great interview, a really great episode. So I hope people check that out as well.
And I think people understand if you're absent, you have to meet with investors. So
exactly,
it's just part of the
the advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
We get the talking points. This is people aren't interested in this. This is like how the sausage gets made stuff. It's behind the scenes. It's inside baseball. It's boring. We don't need to get into it, but it's just part of having a political podcast. It's just this kind of stuff you have to do. So that's all.
Yep. Everyone does it.
Yep. Let's get to our conversation with Daniel Bogusla of The Intercept. What do you think about that?
Let's do it.
Let's get into it. And Daniel Bogusla will be joining the show right after this.
All right.
Cool.
The Soviet synth pop. Wow, deep cut. Deep cut, Max.
Exactly. I started a movement, a Soviet synth pop movement. Anyway, yeah, this is, I'm glad we could find the time to do this.
Yeah. All right, I'll shoot you these files. Have a good rest of your stream.
Yes, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, I'll see you.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Okay, there we go. Live podcasting, folks. We're doing live podcasting over here. What do you think about that? I thought that was good. I thought that was fantastic. Thank you for the raid a few moments ago, Zach App. I appreciate it, Zach. Thank you for that. That was good stuff. I may just take, because now I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours yapping. Might just take a brief little 5-minute break to kind of stretch my legs and maybe get a little glass of water, something like that. I have turned off the mute on the alerts. I know everyone was holding off on subscribing to the show and donating and giving bits and all that stuff, which I appreciate. Everyone respectfully not doing that during the interview. I have, though, turned off the mute on that. So for all the people that have been holding off on that, and I'm sure there's many of you that have been, again, respectfully holding off. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. And I mean, first of all, you should also subscribe to the Insurgents podcast that we just did. Let's be clear about that. Let's be clear about that. I'm not acknowledging the single bit donations. I just want to get that out of the way. I'm not acknowledging the single bit donations. I feel like this is just more of an attempt to fuck with me than to actually to support me in any way. Even though, chat, you're very, very supportive and I appreciate it. But if you can, folks, please subscribe to TRRS. As you know, I must make the little number go up the little number at the bottom of the screen. I must make it go up every single day that I do this show. So please, if you can, subscribe. It is $5 per month. You get all the tiny little images. You support the work that I do here on Twitch, breaking down these stories each and every day. And you join the community. And, of course, we become friends. We love to rent images. You can rent tiny little images, which you can use on this channel or any other channel here on Twitch. You can post little images of my face in other Twitch channels, not just this one. So if anyone does want to, please subscribe. I know you've been waiting. You've been waiting and biding your time.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Crackety Kraken, thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. That's what I'm talking about. Very, very kind of you, Crackety Kraken.
You can count on me.
Thank you for that.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Mistress of Insanity, for complimenting my mullet. I like my mullet too. I'm going to have to clean up the front a little bit more, I think. I think I'm ready to go more business in the front and even more party in the back. And I couldn't do that without the encouragement of people in this community. GMO Radio, thank you for the gifted sub as well. I appreciate that, GMO Radio. And we're now a mere 18 subs away from the goal. So if anyone else wants to, please subscribe to TRRS. I really appreciate it a lot if you can do that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Te quiero. Thank you for 18 months of Tier 1. I appreciate that. Te quiero. Thank you for that. Make him sing. I mean, we could do that. That is within your power if you're watching this. And if I get a mere 32 more subs between now and about 4:30 p.m., I will sing a little song. Which Taylor Swift song would you prefer to sing? I don't know a lot of, listen, no disrespect. I think Taylor Swift is a pretty good pop songwriter, actually. Singer-songwriter. Tons of respect for her accomplishments. Not someone that I listen to a lot. I don't know a lot of the songs, though. I could probably do Bad Blood. I like that song. There was actually that album was pretty good. If there was one Taylor Swift album that I actually know a few songs off of, it would be that 1989 album. Don't know a lot of other songs. You're in the clear. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good. Oof. Never Getting Back Together. Yeah, that's one as well. I don't think I would be very good at singing those songs though. And I don't think I know any. I respect country western artists, Conway Twitty, but I don't know any Conway Twitty songs that I could sing. If you sing Shake It Off, you're required to do the dance. There will be no dancing. Only I may dance. In The Simpsons there. Conan. Do you like Wings? Like the Paul McCartney band? Yeah, of course I like Wings. Who do you think I am? I've got 2 ears and a heart, don't I? Anyway, what else? So we still got a couple subs to go. We still got a couple songs to go, so if you can, folks, please subscribe. I'm going to take a short break in a few minutes before I finish up here. So if you can, please subscribe to TRRS. We got the monthly sub rankings have been reset. We now have Crackety Kraken leading the way. How long will Crackety Kraken stay in the lead for gifted subs this month? We don't know. We just don't know. Sob to Rob.
A new study found that men.
I've got.
A new study found that men with beards are more attractive than men without beards. More great work from the University of Bob Seger.
I love Bob Seger. As you know, if you'll recall, on New Year's, I did sing 3 Bob Seger songs on this very program. 9/11 Airlines reminds me of that tragedy. When are you getting your beard? St. Lotus, I can't grow a beard. Like, I don't want to, I'm not going to gaslight you here. I cannot grow a beard. This is what I can do. Like what you see in front of you. This is what I have. Maybe, possibly, I'll be able to grow like a patchy kind of Che Guevara beard when I'm like 50. Maybe by that time I could do that, but that's not going to be happening anytime soon. Soy Rob Rousseau, it's true. Yeah, I've just had too much soy in my life. Absolutely. I have these like puffy baby cheeks too. Like I would like to be able to grow a beard. I just can't. I can't do it. Rob Rousseau. Yeah, I guess so. Fine. Fine. I'm going to take a little break. You still have a few moments to subscribe if you want.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Mark, thank you very much for 5 gifted subs. Very, very kind of you. Mark, thank you for that. We were brutally roasting Rob and couldn't even be kind enough to get him to 35. Well, we'll still keep working on it. Okay? We're still going to keep working on it. I'll take a little break. I'm going to take a little break. So don't go anywhere. Tell me what to do. You're not my supervisor. Am I not? Maybe. What if I am though? That's something we should think about. Anyways, I'll be back in just a minute, folks. I'm gonna get some water, walk around a little bit. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Don't leave. Don't go.
computer to mark up the size of the account.
Bob, seek her? Bob, I barely know her.
Hello. Hello, what's up? Handsome Rob, they call him. Yes, they do. Many people refer to me as that, and that's coming from the actual Karl Marx. So, not said lightly. This glass of water is so nice and cold too. You ever drink like a really perfectly cold glass of water, and you're just like, that's great stuff. You know, it's nice. It's just a nice little treat sometimes. Water is honestly so good. It is. It's true. I mean, it's no Diet Coke, but it's up there. It's at least a top 3 to 4 beverage for me. It's why I keep the Brita in the fridge. A nice glass of fridge water is great. Really great stuff. And Joe, thank you for the 200 bits. To make a water flavored rain. That's genius. That's genius. Why can't we just have some like caffeine tablets? Why can't I just have water that has caffeine in it? What's wrong with that? Why can't we have that? We can? Oh, cool. They make sparkling water with caffeine. I was not aware of that. It most likely is not available to Canadians. Absolutely ridiculous. Thanks, Trudeau. We got to organize a convoy over this. the next iteration of Canadian democracy will be given a leader of it at breakfast or the go about your business. Maybe we should bring that back. Yeah, like that's what I mean. At least if we're going to have this kind of like Gilded Age extremist version of capitalism, you could at least give us some good drugs to get us through the day. We don't get shit. Diet Coke is 90% water. The other 10%, you guessed it, ice cold Diet Coke. Brilliant. Brilliant. Now, this is how you keep the Canadians docile, with these kind of caffeine restrictions. Where do I get the 100% Diet Coke? You just gotta drink the syrup. It's the syrup that they put in the machines. That's the real shit. That's the medicine that they don't want you to have. Just drink a big glass of Diet Coke syrup. They suppress our medicine. This is what the man doesn't want you to have access to this because of wokeness. They feed us their cures, carbonated water. Because of wokeness, I can't just get a big bag. It comes in those bags. Just sucking from a big bag of Diet Coke syrup. Inject it. There you go. Right into my veins. If I didn't love the delicious flavor, I would think about that. Steal them from Amacas. I genuinely do think, like, if I was rich, sometimes I think, like, what if someone just like gave me $50 million? There's not a whole lot of things that I would do. Like, I probably wouldn't spend all that much of it. I think that's one thing I would splurge on, though. I would get an actual like fountain soda machine in my home. I think that's one little treat that I would have for myself. Oh, the ones with the mixes of the flavors, yeah, with the touch screen. Oh yeah, hell yeah. That would be so cool. I would really only use a few. I don't know if I would use all the different flavors that much though, but that would be badass though. True lime packets in DC. That sounds nice. You'd have a house. How bourgeois of you. Actually, that's not true. I've said this before. Like, I really do think if I had that money, why do I want a house? Like, not only is home ownership like prohibitively expensive, it just seems like a pain. I don't know. It's like more stuff to clean. Like, I like my apartment. I've got 2 bedrooms. I got a nice kitchen. I got a bathroom. Like, what do I need? I need a whole other level. Like, what do I need? They got public parks. They got public pools. You know, like I said, if I got money, I would probably just pay the rent at this apartment that I live in a year in advance. You can purchase an apartment, but then you become an exploiter, though. Then you become an exploiter. But you don't have an acre of green, unusable land in front. Exactly. So that's it. I would probably just continue to rent this exact apartment, but I would install a soda fountain machine, though. And I would maybe get a bigger TV. Get a penthouse 4-bedroom condo? I guess so. I just like my apartment, honestly. I think my apartment's really cool. I'm sure it would be nicer. It would be nicer to live in a swaggy condo. Probably. I like living here, though. It's like, I don't want to move. Even if someone gave me $50 million, I'd be like, I don't want to move. A lifetime of neoliberalism has taught me the merits of low overhead. Exactly. It just becomes like you start getting that kind of property, it just becomes a money pit. I'm not trying to insult anyone if you're a homeowner or anything like that. Maybe this might just be cope on my end from the fact that I will never actually be able to afford this. It could just be a kind of coping mechanism, but I just like my apartment. That's all. I like it. You're the victim of landlord propaganda. Well, I guess I would like to abolish the system of having landlords at all, I would like to do that. I bet Bob Seger's got a hell of a house. I'm sure he does. He wrote a number of huge hit songs. He sold a lot of records, Bob Seger. The home and property ownership is literally an exclusively North American phenomenon. It's a scam. Who needs it? A lifetime of neoliberalism taught me the value of cope. Exactly. Is this Canadian telly I'm watching? I guess it's just ads from 1996. I don't know if it's specifically Canadian or not. Have you considered becoming an heir to a frozen food empire? No, I have considered that, yeah. I just decided against it, though. I decided against it. Seriously, though, I like my apartment building. I like my apartment. I'm sure it would be nicer if I was rich. I could get a nicer condo or something like that, but then I would have to move. I would probably just rather not move and just spend that money on, I don't know, something else. Now, what's the point? Obama voice. If you like your apartment, you can keep it. So I'm just going to hang out and chit chat a little bit more, folks. We're going on 3 hours here. I do have to take some time to edit the podcast episode that we just did. I think we can just hang out and do a little chit-chatting for the next 20 minutes or so. The 90s were very extreme. The 90s were it was a very extreme time. Thieving time for my employer. I love that for you. Love that for you. We love our time theft soldiers. Extreme cheese ass decade. Like we've been pointing out, this was the end of history. This is the peak of Western civilization. What we're looking at right now. The extreme 90s era. That was the absolute pinnacle of everything. All the genocide that we had to commit in order to achieve full global hegemony. All the murder and violence and imperialism and colonialism, genocide. It was all for this. It was for this. This was the pinnacle of our civilization. This is what we did with that. This is a society right on the brink, right cresting over the roller coaster right before it starts to go down. All the blowback was just bubbling in the background until 2001. That's exactly. The 90s were clearly still shit. They had good qualities as well. There were some good things about the 90s. Hey, it's Steven Weber from Wings. Getting a commercial spot. He's got good hair there. That's a good look for him. Bubbling in the background like me the morning after Taco Bell. You know, talk about another thing that I can't get in Montreal, Taco Bell. I would probably eat Taco Bell, I'm going to say at least once a week. I would probably eat Taco Bell if it was an option for me. It's just not, though. I don't know what the fucking deal is with Montreal on that level. There's no Taco Bell. There's no Chipotle. There's really no, like, fast food, shitty Mexican stuff. Mexican food options. Yeah, I've had it before. I remember in my hometown of Brockville, Ontario, or Brackville, or Brock Vegas, whatever you want to call it. I remember they made a Taco Bell in the late 90s. And it was amazing. And then eventually it only lasted like 6-7 years. But you can get other Taco Bells like around Ontario and in different places, but you can't you can't get it here. It's crazy. I don't understand. I think it might have something to do with the language laws. I am thirsty for a Crunchwrap Supreme, actually. I absolutely am. Yeah, Lioness, here in Quebec, we have got very strict language laws about the French language and about like having businesses. Like if you have a sign, it's got to be like if it's bilingual, it has to have like a prominent French thing. There's all these like really meticulous, annoying laws that are put into place to promote the French language and ensure that it's never being supplanted in any way. And I guess that there are certain corporations that just like don't want to go through the fucking bother of dealing with it. I think that might be part of it. Like KFC in Quebec is PFK, for example, and it would just be La Belle Taco or something. I don't know why. We just don't have any of this shit. I don't really get why. Seriously, I would really like to eat Taco Bell more. I would like to have Taco Bell be more a part of my lifestyle. Respect for wanting to ignore the French language. Ironically, all the bullshit laws about the French language in Quebec make me want to speak French less. You know, it's like it radicalizes me in the other direction. Just as a way to hold my middle finger up to the people in this province. These insane rules about French. Like, Jesus Christ, calm down. Your culture is fine. Your culture is not going anywhere. I don't know who wrote this, but it's a good summary of Quebec sucking. Yeah, I mean, it's something I've talked about a lot before on this show, the way that secularism in Quebec, which was a big part of Quebec's political culture after the Quiet Revolution in the 60s, because it used to be really dominated by the church. And after the Quiet Revolution, Quebec became very secular, but in many ways, this like secularism now is being used to promote Islamophobia and white supremacy, which is pretty insidious. The idea of ensuring that there's this kind of secularism in our political culture is a good idea, but it doesn't actually work out that way in practice. And we have religious symbols being banned, which ends up just being a law against Arab and Muslim women and is not really applied to anyone else. Second place has settler colonialism. That's what it is. That's why Quebec, I've talked about it before, but Quebec has this really weird mentality. Because it's this kind of like Quebecers, like people in Quebec, French people in Quebec were colonized. And they have this kind of like, we were colonized chip on their shoulder, but we're colonizers themselves. So they have that kind of colonialist mentality at the same time. They're simultaneously colonial mindset and this kind of this colonized chip on their shoulder against the British. And, hating the British is cool too. Being against the British, I mean, that's all right. I get it. Hating the British is cool. That's not John C. Reilly, is it? No, it's not. It's not. I thought it was for a sec. No one colonizes people except for me. And maybe the boy. That's right. That's Quebec. That's Quebec for you. But just to give you an example of the way the language laws work here, like for instance, with my son, we speak English most like at home. And if you have kids in Quebec, you can't choose to send them to like an English school board school, and the English school board schools are immersion mostly. Like some are more English, but most of them are immersion. But if you have kids in Quebec, you can't just choose to send your kid to an English language school. You have to have gone to an English language school yourself. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that in concept as well. It's really important to learn another language. It's good to learn French or whatever other foreign language. But yeah, so if you didn't go to English school yourself, you can't send your kid to an English school. Like even if you speak English at home, or even if that's what you choose to do, Like I had to go for my kid to go into the English school board. I had to get like a certificate from my school and my high school to show that I personally did my education at an English school. Or you can move to Alberta, where we have freedom to be racist as hell against the French. Well, I think Alberta would have a lot of its own problems as well, is the issue. And that's the thing. As much as like sometimes I find Quebec annoying, sometimes I have a long family history here in Montreal. And still sometimes I don't really feel like I'm totally like welcome here or totally at home here. Despite, having this long family legacy from Montreal. I've lived here for like 20 years as an adult. After I moved away, my parents moved away in the 80s because of that exact kind of climate. That's exactly why they left when I was a young kid. I've lived here for a long time. And despite any of those issues that I might have with like this kind of culture war, language bullshit, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, any other city other than Montreal. I think Montreal's one of the best cities in the world, for sure. I'm biased, I guess, but it's really a really awesome place to live, and I love it a lot. But there are things about Quebec that are very annoying. I'm sending my future kids to a Mandarin immersion school. I mean, yeah, that would probably be way more valuable. Absolutely. For the future, definitely. Easily the best in Canada. Yeah, I think it's one of the best cities in North America. We're really in the world. Like, honestly, I think it's fucking great. Even if it's somewhat annoying. Definitely in Canada, like, it's one of the lowest housing prices, even though the housing prices are getting worse. I certainly wouldn't be able to afford the apartment that I live in if I lived in any other city in this country. No way. Not even like Brockville. I was talking to someone the other day about Brockville, about how like a apartment on like King Street in Brockville, Ontario was more expensive than the apartment that I live in Montreal, in like this really cool neighborhood. Like it's absolutely insane. And the transit as well is really good, even though the cost of that is going up and it's not being made public or anything like that like it should, but it's still, in terms of the infrastructure, it's some of the best in North America as well. This French-speaking city is a cultural hub and the fashion capital of Canada, drawing tons of style-inclined creatives from all over. Exactly, just look at me, fashion icon. Fashion icon Rob Rousseau. Wonderful city. It really is. Despite my issues that I have with this kind of culture war bullshit. Not sure if I've chatted before, and you have not. First time chat from Teeny Tiny Death. I'm not sure I've chatted before, but I wanted to say that I really appreciate you, and I'm very thankful to have caught your stream today. Thank you. Hope you and folks in chat have a lovely weekend. Teeny Tiny Death, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. What a nice first message. Usually people come here in their first message, they're like, you love Hamas, or whatever. So that's a refreshing change. I hope you come back. I do the stream every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, starting at noon Eastern. So please come back.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And thank you, Anon, for the gifted sub to our new friend, Teeny Tiny Death. So what else do we have on the... Do we have anything else on the agenda here? What else are we talking about? My Korean wife chose Montreal because of French. The mix of cultures and languages is what attracted her compared to other North American cities. Yeah, and I live in a Korean neighborhood, and it's fucking fantastic, actually. I love it. Le Québec est pro-français, mais ne soutient pas les minorités françaises au dehors de Québec. Yeah, I mean, we talked about how kind of like the secularism gets used to enforce a certain kind of like cultural hegemony, and the language stuff does as well. I'm being subjected to French again. Mais c'est important là de parler en les autres langues des fois. C'est important. C'est une culturelle éducation important. Peut-être une journée je vais faire une grosse émission, toutes les émissions de TRRS, toutes les émissions en français. Je pense que la communauté ici, de TRRS, veut ça vraiment si je parle seulement en français pour un épisode complet. Hey, what do we think about that? Brandon's going out for ice cream again. This motherfucker loves eating ice cream more than anything. There's two things that Joe Biden loves to do in this world. Kill little kids in Palestine and eat ice cream. I wish I loved anything as much as Joe Biden loves these two things. I bet he's little children flavored ice cream. I'm sure that he probably does. These people are sickos. These are sick individuals. When I was doing my gerontology rotation in this skilled nursing home last semester, the patients were always given ice cream with every meal. Well, and that's the thing. And Joe Biden is cognitively on par with probably most of those folks. That's what Joe Biden should be doing right now. Like, in a world that made sense, he would just be sitting with a blanket over his legs, eating ice cream in a nursing home somewhere. Instead, he's the president of the United States. He's the head of this massive, grotesque imperialist machine. That's what he should be doing. Put this man in a diaper and put him out of his misery. You know? Why is he doing this? Give Joe Brandon The best thing about Brandon's reign of terror is his dog's bitten like 20 Secret Service agents. That is pretty cool. Yeah. Ben and Jerry's are going to make corn pop and Gazentier flavor. Well, they would, except Ben and Jerry's are actually cool and not genocidal Zionists like Joe Biden is. But maybe some other demonic ice cream company could do that. Like the one that's Pelosi is obsessed with. What are these people with ice cream? What is with these people? What is the weird ice cream obsession? It's bizarre. Is he being Weekend at Bernie? The ice cream is to keep him busy while others are around making decisions. I do, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's literally a Weekend at Bernie situation, but I do think the show is basically being run by the advisors and consultants, and he's basically just like the front man that they put in front of cameras. They give him a shot in the ass of whatever like weird presidential chemicals or amphetamines that they get to get him going again. Make him like kind of cognizant for like a few moments on camera. You know? I think that pretty much basically is what's happening. He's just like, they just throw him in front of the cameras and they say, just read this. Ice cream is relatable. You poor slobs love ice cream. Exactly. It's so stupid. Jesus. You like this, don't you? It is Reagan all over again, for sure. He's yet another Reagan. Yet another in the long line of Reagans that have been president of the United States. That's the whole thing about Biden that is so funny, is that they spent a long time trying to run anyone else. Like as we were all deeply involved in that primary campaign, paying attention to that primary campaign in 2020, they were, and you'll remember from the media narratives, they were desperate to anoint anybody else other than Biden. They auditioned Kamala, Pete Buttigieg, Beto, Elizabeth Warren. Every one of them would like get a little turn to get a little media cycle. Like they were desperately trying to like promote anyone other than Biden. Biden was an afterthought through that whole process. It was only when just that repeatedly failed to catch on with anyone. The only one that was doing anything was Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden just still had that like, oh yeah, he was the vice president thing that people like had this kind of connection to, and this connection to the Obama years, which were kind of viewed in this way of kind of the last time things were good after the Trump disaster. And it was only when like no one that they were trying to promote could beat Bernie and he was cruising to a nomination that they were like, all right, fuck it, Biden. And that's what they did. And they orchestrated that and it worked. But like they tried to get anybody other than Joe Biden to take that spot. That's why I think it's one of the reasons I think it's highly likely that if they do win this next election, Biden will not serve out that term. Like his job is to win that election because he's Joe Biden and people know who the fuck he is. and then to try and pass the baton down to whoever else they try to anoint, whether it's Kamala or whoever else. You should try to get Bernie on here. I don't think Bernie's going to be joining this show. I would love to get Jeremy Corbyn though. I love Jeremy Corbyn, and I do think I could get Jeremy Corbyn to come on. Can you imagine Kamala Al-Zudid giving a presser as president? I mean, Kamala would be a funny president, definitely. Like, I think in terms of like just entertainment value, I think Kamala would be up there. Like Buttigieg wouldn't be entertaining, I don't think, as president. I can put you in touch with the staffers. Oh yeah, I know Bernie staffers too. Like Bernie follows me on Twitter. I could DM Bernie Sanders right now, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I've talked about it before. I think I will always appreciate Bernie for the things that he has spent his whole career promoting. Huge part of my sort of like political trajectory. I feel a little disillusioned with that whole movement and the whole possibility of running in these parties, and a little disillusionment about the way that Bernie, I think, ended up not reaching for that brass ring when he had it in sight, and kind of backing down to the Democratic Party establishment rather than taking him on, which he was repeatedly insisting that's what he was doing. He's spent the last 4 years trying desperately to promote Biden's agenda and getting played at every turn. He was way too long in denouncing the horror in Gaza over the last couple of weeks, and is still weirdly squishy on it, even when he's trying to talk about how there needs to be investigations or whatever. He's still been largely supportive of Biden at every step. Yeah, I get it. It's politics. And ironically, the whole thing about him being Jewish as well, I still think he was always like the strongest of anyone that caucuses with the Democrats on criticizing Israel. But I still think he kind of failed this test, unfortunately. I love Bernie too. Like I said, it was a big part of my whole political trajectory. So I'll always have a huge amount of admiration and respect for him for what he's done throughout his career. But I'm a little disillusioned with Bernie though, and just that whole process. Because that's the difference to me between Bernie and Corbyn. Corbyn never backed down. Corbyn never gave these people the satisfaction, and that's something that I respect and admire. Because Jeremy Corbyn, just like Bernie did, got totally fucked by the establishment in the UK, the liberal establishment, And Bernie tried to make nice with these people. And Corbyn said, fuck you, I hate you, And that's something I really respect. Because, that was one thing for me, was that Bernie really gave across the impression that he was taking these people on, And at the end of the day, he blinked. He flinched, Complicated feelings about it, Well, that's okay. Strong bad emails. If you still feel that way, like I said, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for the guy. But now the bald political figure leftist that I support is a little guy named Lenin. Less our revolution, more state and revolution. That's where I'm at now. It was a different situation in 2019 and 2020. Yeah, Corbyn refused to bend the knee. Exactly. I would like to get Corbyn to come on here. I really don't think Bernie would. I think Corbyn would, though. It was funny that happened to be sitting right next to my desk. It's not always there, and that I can just reach out and grab it. Oh boy. Yeah, and well, that's what Red Wizard. Like, it's undeniable that I think Corbyn did. He was still too nice. Corbyn was still too nice with the establishment, and did allow his movement to get subverted and hijacked with the whole Brexit thing. That was just used as a tool to destroy that movement. And I think he was someone that was kind of like stealthily pro Brexit, but for good reasons and not bad reasons. And because it was so polarizing and there were so many like toxic right-wing figures associated with it, never really wanted to articulate that. And then kind of gave into this part of the liberal establishment that was like, no, we need to have no Brexit. We need to do a new referendum. We can't ever do this. And then alienated a lot of these like working class communities who were pro-Brexit because of the ways that Brexit had been used to, or the way that like globalization and joining the EU had been used to like destroy a lot of these communities, the whole neoliberal process. And that was kind of the story of the whole, after the election where Corbyn did had that really surprising and shocking and great result and almost won, and would have won probably if he hadn't been sabotaged by his own people that were supposed to be his colleagues. And then was kind of, I think, gave into this group of people that kind of pertained to be, connected to his movement, who advised him to go into to try and court this kind of like anti-Brexit sentiment, and it cost him. Yeah, they did take advantage of Corbyn's kindness. I agree. And we've talked about also the whole the scam of these like this anti-Semitism crisis, which, as we know now, especially from the events of the last couple of months, but having seen things like The Lobby, the Al Jazeera documentary, which was always just a completely bad faith campaign to destroy the movement and had nothing whatsoever to do with like anti-Semitism or any of these things that it pertained to be about. And Corbyn, because he didn't want to be accused of that, I think gave that a lot of oxygen, and so did a lot of people like in British media, even if like leftist independent media they gave it oxygen because they didn't want to be accused of this kind of thing. This is exactly why this is so evil, the weaponization of anti-Semitism in this way, because good people try to do the right thing and they try to show how serious they are about these accusations, and it just got used, completely cynically weaponized to destroy the whole movement. And that's one thing we had to learn from that. Yeah, you never entertain their complaints. Like you can't reason with these. Like it's not about what it pertains to be about. There's nothing you can do to make them let it go. There's nothing you can do to appease what they're asking. They're just trying to use that to destroy you, and you have to give it right back to them. And I think that really helped sabotage the Corbyn movement. And he was too nice to really go all in on calling that out for what it was. My centrist friend tried to say Brian Mulroney was good because he did NAFTA and GST. Yeah, exactly. And look, there's all the people celebrating Brian Mulroney, like with NAFTA. Like, if you're going to celebrate Brian Mulroney, I guess celebrate the whole end of apartheid moment, even though I talked about how much bullshit that is to give Mulroney credit for the end of apartheid. It's like preposterous. But at least do it for that. Like what, saying it was because of NAFTA. Like, what is that? that completely all the economic crises that we're dealing with now are a result of these policies that people like Mulroney and Thatcher and Reagan put into place. Destroyed manufacturing, deindustrialized our communities, was a huge assault on organized labor. Wage stagnation. All the housing crises and economic crises we keep dealing with, it's all stems from that. The complete collapse of the social safety net. I hecking love neoliberalism. Me too. So, folks, I got to get going soon. I'm 11 subs away from the goal. And remember, I just did 2 streams this week. I did... It was nice to take a little break, but I did have a little bit of a setback from taking time off of doing the stream. So, if you can, please subscribe to the program. 11 measly subs away from the goal. So if you can, please subscribe. It's $5 a month. It's totally free if you have an Amazon Prime account. You can also gift subscriptions as well to instantly rocket your way up to the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle system. That's Twitch's only 2-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. It is the only such program that exists on this whole platform. The elite tier benefits have turned my life around. Thank you, Joe. I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. So just a mere 11 subs to go, folks. It's been even though I did take some time off this week, it has been I've really enjoyed the last couple of streams. It's been a good week. I am going to be back on Monday. I'm going to be able to do some longer stuff on Monday and Tuesday, and probably Wednesday, actually, because it's March break. I might have to take. I am going to take a little bit of time off because it's March break, and I'm going to be with my kid and going to be doing some stuff with him. But Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, I should be able to be here for a couple of supersized streams. I would definitely like to do some more spreading of managed democracy as well. I'll be doing some more of that. You can park your car here. Does Little Rob go with you when you make your annual visits to Langley? He's not even real. It's just totally part of my cover story. It's a way to ingratiate myself with people, have people let their guard down when they see that I'm like a wholesome, like kind of dad. It kind of takes the edge off a lot of the more harsher extremist statements that I make on this program. It increases this kind of like parasocial connection between myself and the viewer, the listener, the audience. You know? So, that's why he's midget deadly bodyguard. That's right. That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct, folks. I heard him absolutely own you on stream week before last. I can't remember what that was. I can't remember what he said. Anyway, you only heard something from off camera. Is this Penny Marshall and Rosie O'Donnell? Rosie O'Donnell was huge at this time when she was she had her show. She was kind of Ellen before Ellen was Ellen. I can't remember either. I remember laughing so hard I choked. He's a funny guy. He's got good comic timing. Do you want to see a comic that I drew for him? Is that worth 11 measly subs, which none of which have come in yet? I made him a little comic book. I'm wondering if I should show it on camera or if I should just load up the pictures, because I've taken pictures of it. Let's see here. I'm genuinely pretty proud of this. He was like he just wanted me to like make him up a superhero. And I just kind of came up with this superhero on the spot, and I was trying to do something kind of like weird and funny. Okay. So this is what happened. He just gave me this he just gave me his drawing pad or whatever, because he fills up he has like a dozen books filled with like comics and stories and drawings and stuff that he's been working on. So sometimes he just puts it in front of me and he's just like, yeah, just can you draw a superhero? Like make up a superhero. And I try to think of something like funny or weird or different. So this is what I did. Metal Dude. So here's the first page. How do I? Yeah. So you see he's sitting there. I'm trying to see on the screen. So much homework. And they come by. She says hi. It's like, oh, hi, Stacy. Hi, Rick. He's being mean. Don't look at her, nerd. Later, dweeb. And he's like upset. And then it says later, it is time to become Metal Dude. He has a magic guitar. He has like a magic guitar, so he's just a nerd named Todd, and he has a magic guitar. He goes home, picks it up, and he becomes Metal Dude. Okay. There is a next part as well. There's more, and I'm going to show you. There is more. So you see they're at the school dance. How much of you is in Metal Dude? It's a lot, you know. It's definitely, there's a part of it, for sure. As you can see, I don't know how to draw, so it's kind of always a funny exercise for me to try to take these things from my imagination and draw them without really having any actual drawing skills whatsoever. So he shows up at the school dance. Rick, of course, still being an asshole, says, beat this. And he uses his guitar and shoots lightning at Rick, who gets electrocuted and falls down. And yeah, this is the end. So Stacy's really impressed. Stacy's really impressed. She says, "That's so cool. Who are you?" And they call me Metal Dude. And my favorite detail is you see Todd at the back is crying. He's crying. He's all like smoking. So that's it. That was a special comic book that I drew. What lesson does it teach my son? Well, it teaches him that if someone is ever mean or a bully, you can electrocute them with your magical guitar if you have one. And also, there is an important lesson to this, which is that it's all about confidence. There's no real difference between Todd and Metal Dude. Really, he just took off his shirt and put on a jacket, and it's about having confidence in yourself. There is no magic guitar. There's no magic abilities. It's about the way you carry yourself. It's about being confident in yourself. Okay? It's all about getting babes. That's right. That's right. That's the secondary theme. Dumbo's feather. That's right. It is like Dumbo's feather. Although I guess it's not technically, because it does shoot lightning bolts. I mean, it's not purely a like a placebo or anything. The magic guitar does shoot lightning bolts, so. But it's also about confidence. The writing for the girl was a little one-dimensional. It doesn't pass the Bechdel test, unfortunately. First comes confidence, then comes magic electric guitar. That's right. That's exactly right. That's the lesson. So now you've seen my fantastic drawing and storytelling ability. I did make a second part. Do you want to see the second part? I did do like a part 2. Should I save that for next time? Make it live action? I think someone should pay me money to do that. Like, honestly, I think it's a good idea and it would be funny. Okay, I'm gonna briefly show you this one. Okay.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Joe, thank you for the gifted sub. I think you should hold part 2 up until the subs come in. You know what? I just have too much goddamn respect for this community. I don't want to hold it hostage. I know that after we look at this, that the rest of the subs are going to go in. And I don't need to hold anything over your heads or hold some kind of sword of Damocles over your head, whatever it is. I have confidence that the subs that 10 more subs will come. Anyway. You have Todd, he's driving home, he's crying. I hate that Metal Dude. What the? His car comes to a halt. See, there's a big hole in the road. The asteroid in there. So he goes to the other meteor? The what? Of course, you know my son loves this. He falls in off the edge, collapses, falls into the meteor crater. Later, I said, ha 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 ha, I'm huge. So he becomes huge because he gets mutated by the meteor after being humiliated by Metal Dude at the school dance. Huge Todd. Well, my son helped me come up with the name. That's just his name is Huge. So I guess I have to do the next part eventually. This was a couple months ago that I did this. I do eventually have to do the next part where Huge and Metal Dude
You can count on me. End up good old Rob colliding, to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Comrade Bushy, for the gifted sub. I was thinking as well that he could lose the guitar. That's what I think is going to be in like part 3. Huge like destroys the guitar, and that's the whole thing, is he learns the lesson that it was the power of Metal Dude was within him all along. He didn't need the guitar. You know? That's going to be the lesson. But I haven't gotten around to that part yet. Spoilers. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, if you're like a big Hollywood big shot, Netflix or whatever, and you want to give me some money to make this show, then I would be happy to do it. Or they're just like, or I'll just steal this idea, which is not copyrighted. Instead of giving you money, I will just steal the idea and I will make the money myself. Yeah, we talked about the George Galloway stuff early on in the stream. So, folks, it is... I got to get going in a couple minutes. I showed you my comic. I opened myself up to you. Not in a weird way, just in like a cool, normal way. To show is something I showed you, a drawing that I did. A little story that I'm creating with my son, who does exist. That was a joke earlier. That was a joke. We got 9 subs to go. So are there 9 brave heroes out there?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Red Wizard, thanks for the 2 gifted subs. I appreciate you, Red Wizard. Thank you. And now a measly 7 subs to go. A measly 7 subs to go. Are there 7 brave heroes? Or is there just one brave hero, or just a combination of different people? I don't know. There's infinite numbers of combinations.
You've just become an elite member
Oh
of
my
the
goodness.
Friendship Triangle.
Teeny Tiny Death. Teeny Tiny Death, thank you so much for 5 gifted subs. That is very, very kind of you.
You can count on me. You're going to have good
a
old
brand
Rob
new community
to talk you
member.
through all
And
this.
Dr. Maggot, thank you for 2 gifted subs as well. Every time Rob says subs, I think of Jared Fogle. That's someone that you never want to be compared to, really, in any context. I'm more of a Dagwoods man as well. Another thing about Quebec that I love, which is the sandwich chain Dagwoods. Very, very good sandwiches, those. We did it, folks. We hit the goal. Yeah, technically, in theory, if I got 15 more subs, I would sing a little song. I'm not really counting on it. I'm not really counting on that happening. And in fact, I don't even want it to happen, because I have to leave anyways. So thank you. Thank you for not gifting 15 more subscriptions. Since I gifted the sub to Teeny Tiny Death, I'm afraid I must take responsibility for those 5 as well. You can add them to my tally. Okay, we're going to have to check with the judges on that one. We're going to have to go to the board about that. No, I know strong bad emails. I'm pretty hungry too. I'm going to get Pizza Hut later. I'm going to get Pizza Hut in about an hour. More like pizza butt. No, I don't think so, because I think I genuinely do enjoy Pizza Hut. Sometimes I would like something different. Again, I'm hanging out with my son, and he's pretty rigid about these kinds of things. But frankly, it's really good. I think it's definitely the best chain, like corporate conglomerate chain pizza place. Was it a Pizza Hut commercial with Trump? I don't care. I know Gorbachev was in it famously in a Pizza Hut commercial when the Soviet Union dismantled their entire economic and cultural system that they'd been struggling for decades to create so they could get Pizza Hut, as we recall. Trump may have been on one though. I don't know. I can't recall. Before we go,
Это Горбачев.
Горбачев.
Это из-за него у нас в экономике бардак.
This guy was right.
Благодаря ему у нас новые
His
возможности.
yuppie dipshit
Из-за
son.
него у нас политическая нестабильность.
Да благодаря ему у нас свобода.
Полный хаос.
Перспективы.
Политическая нестабильность.
Да благодаря ему у нас есть Pizza Hut.
It is good pizza.
За Горбачева! За Горбачева!
Sometimes nothing brings people together like a nice hot pizza from Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut. That's good. I like that. Give my regards to our friend DJ Mule. He's a beautiful man. I'll see you folks very soon. Goodbye. I love you.